Thucydides, the father of history, proclaims they were invented by the Corinthians in the 8th century BC. Extremely light and manoeuvrable when outfitted with its customary 3 rows of strong oarsmen situated into banks on each side of the ship. The primary tactic of the ancient Greek trireme was to attempt to strike an enemy ship with its bronze ram, mounted on the right side. This ram, combined with its manoeuvrability and the experience of an Athenian crew of oarsmen, made the trireme an extremely effective class of ship in naval combat. As time went on, however, marines and naval boarding actions, ship-based artillery and missile barrages became the more effective options for naval action, thus rendering the trireme effectively useless in comparison to the pentia and quinquereme, its replacements in naval action. In 2003, Warner Brothers were running their own large-scale military operation, the creation of an old-school Hollywood epic. A bunch of lily-white boys, some swords, some sandals, and maybe, if they're really lucky and don't yap on too much, goddammit, a woman. They had their general, a Germanic steady hand fresh off the boat of directing George Clooney's grizzledly charming Captain Billy Tyne in The Perfect Storm. This guy could work with big weather, big egos, and big boats. But what they needed was their trireme, a 3-headed, 3-armed star power wielding machine. The first choice was obvious. Achilles, the coolest, hottest guy in all of Greek history, must be played by the coolest, hottest guy in all of early 2000s Hollywood, William Bradley Pitt. For his rival, Hector, they needed dignity, they needed respect. And what says dignity and respect more than Ang Lee's Hulk? So they called up Eric Bana and he said, do I have to do an accent? And they said, could you kind of half do one in some scenes? And he was like, absolutely. And then I'm assuming there was some sort of rounding error or he fell off a cart or something. Orlando Bloom is also there. So they had their general, they had their trireme of stars, they built huge sections of Troy and Malta, and their movie was a smash hit, leading to $497.4 million at the box office. But despite its massive success at the time, Troy suffers in the cultural memory as a footnote, seen as a bloated, overlong mess of a movie. Its old school style of putting a bunch of movie stars in little skirts throwing spears at each other is seen as quaint and outdated. Like its naval predecessor, this trireme was being superseded by newer models of blockbusters, with the pentia of rebooting old extant franchises and the quinquereme of cinematic universes. Poor Troy doesn't stand a chance in the cultural memory monolith. But perhaps there's something to learn from this little movie that cost $195 million to make. Perhaps as the fires of this once great city spread around us, we will think back to a more peaceful time. Or perhaps, in the words of one Agamemnon, we will simply let it burn. This is Troy.
Welcome to Supporting Cast, a show about the undersung heroes of the film industry. With me as always is Lincoln Vickery. And
Hello.
Charlie Davenport.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Oh, we're rusty.
Oh my god. I didn't know what I expected, but like a paragraph metaphor about boats, wasn't it?
I don't know why you wouldn't expect that.
Well, because the boats don't really play a big part in the story.
You've never been more wrong about anything.
Okay.
This movie is 95% about the triremes and nothing else.
The triremes spend most of their time on the beach.
Yeah, and you get to look at them.
They are really good. They do
I love
look really good.
I love triremes. The thing that I discovered when watching Troy is that triremes are one of the most important things in my life, and I did not know.
That's
They have
good
little
information.
eyes on them.
They're beautiful.
I love them so much.
I love triremes. I feel like old pirates.
Sure, okay.
So you know how you used to be a car guy, and
Yeah.
now you're a trireme
I'm so much more of a trireme guy than I am a car guy. Car guy, I'm like, I like certain types of cars. I fucking love a trireme. I want to get under the hood of a trireme. So and I read for that a fairly lengthy historical, like probably aimed at like teenagers for like their ancient history class. Just kind of like 4 to 5 pages on triremes. And I tell you what, fascinating stuff.
You know who probably else did that? Nigel Phelps, I reckon.
Nigel
while
Phelps
he
might
was
have read a thing or
researching.
two about the trireme
I
and maybe the pentia and the quinquereme.
I will say my favorite thing about Nigel Phelps, his whole energy creating this movie is that he probably did read it and he threw it all in the bin. And he was
Yeah.
like, I like that one. That one looks cool. We're
Yeah.
putting that in.
Absolutely. So for those who are just joining us for this episode, we are, as Seamus so eloquently explained before, we are the series we talk about unsung, film people. So we've done different actors. At the moment, we're in the middle of our series with Nigel Phelps, who is a production designer. So we've just done Batman, we've done Judge Dredd, both excellent films. Really go back and have a listen to those.
Both films of differing quality, I'd say.
I'd say both excellent. And then we have got, of course, Troy. So I don't know if you guys want to have a little bit of a chat about, you know, just where we've been at, or what, like we've taken a bit of a break for those loyal fans. Life got a bit busy, so we put someone on the ice for a bit, but now we're back.
I got long COVID. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I got so sick and I'm still recovering.
You know what is, it's not funny, but it is funny. We were about to record this episode just as Paul Lincoln was recovering, but Lincoln, to give himself a test, read his opening paragraph and then ran out of breath. And now I'm like, did you just not have long COVID, or was it just a dramatic monologue?
Did you maybe just write too much?
Yeah, I was like, hang on. You're like, it's done. No, just joking. Lincoln was so sick.
When you say that, I got really worried about you. Hearing it now, I'm way less worried. So yeah,
I tried to because not that I'm so good at doing this stuff, but
You're
it's like
very good.
I can read long tracks of text quite well.
Yeah.
And the fact that I couldn't made me upset and anxious.
I love the idea that like the test for long COVID, instead of being like, see if you can walk down the street, it's like read
this monologue that Lincoln wrote
Read this
for
monologue
his dumb
about butts.
podcast.
medically approved.
Yeah, so I got really, really sick, and then it was Christmas, and then it was the start of the year, and we got really busy, and now it's the 24th of January when we're recording this. It'll probably be out next week if I get my shit together. So now finally, well, also I think just input, like, Charlie, you have a full other podcast and a job. Seamus, you have a full job, and we work together on a bunch of stuff as well. This is a thing that we want to keep for ourselves as like kind of an enjoyable thing, so we don't feel like we're killing ourselves making this stupid podcast about people no one's heard of.
And these two, not mentioning something massive, is that they've got a short film that they have both co-wrote, co-directed that's going to be fantastic. They've been finishing up in the last half of the year and this year that I'm so excited about, and we'll be talking about that a bit more, which is so cool. So obviously that took out a lot of time.
We do ourselves and supporting cast.
Honestly, that is so funny.
It would be really funny to do that.
It would be.
It would be short. It would be our shortest episode.
We could do like
We'll
2 episodes on me.
we do my show
Of
reel.
my- Hey, that would be good. That would be actually very, very funny if we we very, very seriously just played each of our show reels and we're like, I think that's a really interesting performance.
So script to screen, this is a scene from Black Books and then another scene from Black Books smashed together.
Mine was from This Is England. And I was like,
Was it really?
Yeah. And I was like, what if me and the other edgy guy from my year were like, we got to be edgy, but we were like 19.
That's really good.
So
Was that Oscar Harris?
Yeah, me and Oscar Harris doing This Is
Oscar
England.
Harris, who we saw, we had another short film at a festival last night.
Plug for Flickerfest, I guess.
Shout out to Flickerfest, and we saw Oscar Harris in a short that was from WA.
Yeah, Oscar Harris. We could do him next. He's actually a listener of this podcast. Shout out to
Shout
you,
out. Oh, yeah, he
Oscar.
is.
Oscar, we're gonna
Great
do you
performance,
next.
Oscar.
Oscar, I've never been more surprised than to see you fall out of that barrel.
It's awesome to speak to each individual listener one by one.
Well, that's the kind of
Sherilyn,
catered service
how
that
you
you can
going?
get from our
Hi,
podcast.
Mother Sherilyn. Hello.
Okay, so we're back. Hope you didn't miss us too much, or I hope you did.
I hope you did a little bit though.
Just a little bit. We miss doing this. As we were saying, though, we wanted to keep it fun, and it's obviously a big commitment for us, but we do have a good time once we get here.
Once we get here, once we're fucking podding,
it's a great time.
can't stop us.
You
Once
really
you pod,
can't.
you can't stop.
Once you pod, you can't stop.
We're the Pringles can of podcasting.
100%. In us, lots of little Trojan boys.
Lots of little chippies.
So Nigel Phelps,
Oh wait, it's Greek
incredible
boys.
production designer. We do a bit more of a kind of breakdown of his earlier career in the previous episodes, but let's give a little bit of a catch up of where we're at. So we had Judge Dredd in 1995, right? Mm-hmm. And Troy, which is coming out in 2004. So a bit of a chunk. This is where our biggest gap between his movies.
The next one I think is 12 years because Detective Pikachu is 2016.
And that's not for like a lack of options. Like he works all the way from Judge Dredd to here. He does Alien Resurrection, he does The Bone Collector, and he does
Alien
Harbor.
He created my
Alien
favorite
4.
boy.
Your favorite boy?
Have you seen the baby alien in Alien Resurrection?
I've not seen Alien, Baby Alien.
Please continue.
Is it?
I've seen Alien 1, 2, and 3. I haven't seen 2 in a long time.
Wait, you still haven't seen Prometheus?
I have not seen Prometheus. Like, to be fair, I think that's one that a lot of people haven't seen. Is he on?
What are you talking about?
Is he on Prometheus, I wonder?
Nigel Phelps. I don't know. I haven't
Anyway.
looked. We'll
Here's
find
something
out.
Shocking. You know who hasn't seen Alien?
You.
You haven't seen the original Alien,
Haven't seen any
the
of
movie
Alien.
Alien.
No.
You haven't seen it.
No.
Pretty
I've been
good.
waiting to watch it. I've studied it.
Waiting
didn't
for
watch
what?
it. Waiting to watch it in the right setting. It's my
What's the
partner's
right
favorite
setting?
movie. I don't know. Romantic. I'm going to propose to him as the alien bursts out of the chest.
Sorry,
I
I'm just going
turn
to
my
show you the
partner.
alien from Alien Resurrection. He's a beautiful boy. He's
yes.
Sigourney Weaver's son.
But isn't Alien Resurrection set 200 years in the future?
Yeah, she gets reincarnated and is half alien, half Sigourney.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good pitch.
It's kind of a good pitch. That movie is not very good. It's written by Joss Whedon. Is that what you were about to say?
That was what I was going to ask.
And the conflict between Joss Whedon's writing and the alien lore just like clashes
That's
the
great.
entire time. Not a great flick. I still love it. But mostly because it stars my favorite actor, the Xenomorph. Anyway, sorry, Alien Resurrection. I'm going to stop you at everyone.
No, that's absolutely. The Bone Collector, which is a Philip Noyce film. Philip Noyce?
He's nice with it.
Yeah, he's Noyce with it. Australian director. And then Pearl Harbor, which of course is Michael Bay, which is a ongoing and long relationship with Nigel Phelps, as mentioned several times, met doing music videos. One of the reasons that we're going to jump from here to Detective Pikachu is that there is a really, really long period of time where Nigel Phelps is mostly doing Transformer movies.
Yeah, which I wanted to do one, but I think it would be they're pretty depressing to do.
They're really...
I think that
Was
first
he
movie's
on
all
the
right.
first movie?
I believe so.
I don't think he was.
Maybe
think
he's
he
not
was
on
on
one,
one.
so we
That's the
couldn't
reason.
do the first
Yeah,
movie.
we debated
We're
it,
like, let's do Dark of the Moon.
Because we try to do beats in people's careers, right?
Yeah.
We try to curate this because we're thoughtful like that. It's not us just yelling at each other about what movies we want to watch
I like to
next.
think about it like I know we've spoken about it, but like
cheese board.
like the Criterion Channel does like retrospectives or whatever, where it's just like we're picking stuff out of the hat. We're just like showing the kind of breadth of it rather than.
And we're kind of showing different eras in action movies and production design in action films because everyone we've picked has been in action, and we have like different kind of eras of it. So you have where you start with Batman, where you have a lot of the the drawings, that kind of style. We've got a lot of animatronics in Judge Dredd. We've got a historical action piece with Troy, and then we've got CGI, pairing that
Mewtwo.
Roger Rabbit style.
Yeah.
With
Started with
Detective
Roger
Pikachu.
Rabbit, now we're here.
With
And
Detective
Detective
Pikachu.
Pikachu's got a little hat.
And Mewtwo's in it.
And Mewtwo is in it.
Which
and Mewtwo is his dad?
I haven't seen it yet, guys. No spoilers.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm so excited to see that movie.
That movie is
Have you-
good.
yeah, right.
No,
I feel like you would really like that movie.
The movie's good.
It's
I can
also a
see
good-
there's
it's a
certain
good
things
flick,
that
I
maybe
think.
appeal to my interest in that movie, like the Pokemon
Pokemon.
franchise.
Justice Smith. Is that his name? The
Yeah,
lead
yeah,
actor? I think he's great.
I think everyone's really good. I'm really excited to talk about it. I'm also really excited to talk about this movie.
Yes.
This movie is why I pushed so hard to do Nigel Phelps
I
when
think
we were
so.
talking about this.
This was a big thing in our initial discussions about like what we would what movie do you want to cover?
Yeah.
And then working backwards from there, and then discovering this kind of like 4 decades of blockbuster thing. Troy is the movie that we wanted.
Troy, for me, I didn't realize this until we started rewatching it because I haven't rewatched it in years. Troy had almost as much an effect on my brain as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, as Donnie Darko had on my brain as a
a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, right?
I think, and this is my kind of thesis of Troy, unfortunately, all of my toxic masculinity is this movie. I can't believe how much this movie just makes me feel good in a hindbrain lizard way.
Right.
I love it every time someone throws a javelin, every time someone does a little hop, every time someone has a big hammer. There's a scene in the extended edition.
Hang on,
Some of the
hang
most
on.
toxic masculine things you can
Little
do.
hops!
Sorry, that was so. I just love the javelin. Like, yeah, cool. Little hop.
Little hop!
And then you went back to epic, but Little Hop was the one that
Big
really,
hammer.
Yeah, Big Hammer.
And there is a great scene. So, a thing that we discovered very
Guys,
recently.
we're here to talk about workplace harassment today. I've noticed that a
I'm
lot of the men think that they can get away with doing little hops.
Guys, I'm hopping mad. Roger Rabbit right here. There is an bit in the extended director's cut.
boy.
I discovered that.
This is going to be a
So,
long
I
episode.
have actual goosebumps right now. There is a scene in the director's cut, which I will not talk about as we go through because I can't remember where it is. That is not in the original. Charlie, you've only watched the theatrical. Lincoln, you've only watched the director's cut.
That's
I
right.
have watched
What?
both.
How did we manage this?
Anyway, there's a scene in the director's cut that's not in the original where they just throw swords to each other after cleaning them. And I was like, that's the sickest shit. Why would you ever cut it?
That's awesome.
Never see the characters again, but they're just polishing short swords. One of them looks at them down the barrel of the sword and he nods and he throws it to someone else. It's beautiful.
How long was the theatrical cut versus the director's cut?
30 minutes less.
Yeah, so I believe the theatrical cut is a slim 2 hours 20, or maybe 2 hours 25, and then the director's is 250.
I think it's
something.
190.
I watched the 250 one.
Yeah.
I remember being like, how do?
Oh, there's
how?
more.
It's 195 minutes to 237 minutes, I think.
So we're talking about your toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie has everything. This has.
What? Sorry, I want to break this down. I
Yeah,
want
so
to. I want
do I.
to peel back the layers here. When you say that this movie defines your toxic, you're saying.
Well, you know how
this,
people watch The Wolf of Wall Street and don't get that you shouldn't be the Wolf of Wall Street?
Sure.
I watched this and I'm like, I should be Achilles.
Right.
I should just dedicate my life to throwing spears and acquiring glory.
You didn't want to be Hector?
No. Hector's the only sensible one, but I want to be Achilles.
You're
I want to
like-
be really toxically mad.
You know who no one wants
For
to be?
you, this is the first two acts of Goodfellas. You're
Yeah.
like, well, there's nothing that could go wrong
There's
here.
nothing wrong.
Yeah.
The
This
This
Achilles.
is the best.
I am so enamored with, like, one of the opening lines of this movie is just, he's the biggest man I've ever seen. I wouldn't want to fight him. And then Achilles turns to him and goes, that's why no one will remember your name.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I've also written that down.
That's-
That's one of the greatest lines.
one of the hottest lines ever said.
Yeah.
I want people to remember my name and not for any of my creative work, but for my mastery of the javelin.
For running at someone and
Hopping,
doing a little
sorry.
hop
For my
and then
hops,
stabbing someone.
for my hops and skirts. Gotta get a hop and a skirt in my life.
Charlie, it was your first experience watching this film, is that correct? Obviously, you watched this film accidentally before we were even going to talk about it last year.
Yeah, we have to shout out to a dear friend of ours. Lincoln has this thing that he does where he asks us all for our top 10 films, right? And
I
you know,
collect all
it's
my
a
friends in
good-
my phone.
Yeah, it's a fun way to kind of get to know someone. And we were at a party once and we asked a dear friend of ours, shout out to you, Stephanie Sindos, fucking legend, whose number one pick was Troy. And I don't know why it just made
It's one of the funniest picks of all
it's
time.
really funny. Like just of all the films, you just go, "What about Troy?" And
I
she was
have
deadly serious.
Never turned around on an opinion hard. Troy could have been my number one. If I'd never seen Lord of the Rings, I think Troy would be my number one.
I have to watch this movie because I don't understand why it's so funny. Everyone can't deal with the fact that Troy was on number one on a list. And so I watched it and I hated it. I feel like I really don't like this movie for many, many reasons. There's some things to love about it, I guess, but it's just like, above all, it's kind of boring. That is the biggest problem with Troy. Like, it actually is boring in the end. There's some amazing fight sequences, and obviously we'll get here. Like, honestly, Hector versus Achilles, incredible fight sequence. They nailed that.
I think
really, really great.
Every fight sequence is
Yeah,
good in this
fight
movie.
sequences are good. You know what I mean? Anyway, we'll get to this
I
later when we talk
tend
about this.
to agree with you. I think
Yeah.
this movie sucks shit.
It's such a bad movie. And the fact that I had to watch it again in such close proximity to, I don't even know, life, what I'm trying to say. The fact that we had to watch it again for this, I was excited to talk about it because it is a lot of fun to talk about. It's one of those ridiculous Hollywood movies. There's a lot of stuff around the making
Ridiculous
of that we'll
Hollywood
get to as
masterpiece.
well. But yeah, this movie, I mean, it just annoyed me because I love Greek history, ancient Greek
Yeah.
history. It's my Roman Empire. That's it.
Wow, the Greek Empire
Greek
is your,
Empire
is
is like
the Hellenic
in a-
Empire
in
is
a
your
shocking
Roman Empire.
twist. I love it. I've read so many like retellings. I'm a big fan of like basically Greek mythology fan fiction. And I'm here for it. So I feel
You're like you're reading all of Herodotus and being like, this is fan fiction. It's like, I guess that's
fiction.
kind of what it was.
It is.
That's all history is
It's
just fan
all
fiction.
fan fiction. But I think basically this movie I should have loved.
Fan fiction is written by the winners.
It
Sorry.
is. I should have loved this movie, and I didn't.
I agree. You should
And
have loved it.
Yeah, I guess I
think
didn't
the
watch
reason
it
that
at
you
7.
didn't is because it's not very well made and
Yeah.
it's poorly written.
Yeah, I was
I
chasing
think
the
that's-
gladiator high.
Well, yeah.
Turns out the Roman Empire was better all along. Turns out I was incorrect about that.
I think this movie is quite poor. When I watched it the first time before, like, which would have been in November, I came away from it being like, hey man, 3.5 stars. I had a good time. Trying to watch it again 2 days ago, or yesterday, and being like, this movie is 2 hours and 50 minutes long, and whenever it is not actively throwing a spear at someone, it is almost difficult to keep your eyes attached to the screen.
I think genuinely not to try and control my huge sweaty body and all of the enthusiasm
From
I feel
diving
about it.
across the table and strangling me to death.
Sorry, small hopping.
Little hopping
A little
all the
hop.
way.
I would love to hop kill someone. Unfortunately,
Heard it here first.
I think watching the theatrical cut, which has all of the violence cut out, and then watching the director's cut as two separate experiences is maybe why I didn't have it. I had no shine wear off between the two experiences. Also, I watched the theatrical cut over 2 nights and I was like, this is a bit long, but man, I really am on board at the end. And I came in to watch the theatrical cut last night after a full day of work. Night before last, after a full day at work. Didn't finish till 3 a.m. I was watching it. I was so much more locked in. I was, for some reason, I was like, oh, I notice all the differences. I see the code in the Matrix. How wonderful. How the hell did they crop out Diane Kruger's nipples in that theatrical cut? It was crazy how much more intensely I watched it and was fully ready to think it was worse and somehow came out it was even better.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's crazy.
That's awesome. Hey, I love love. You know, loving a movie is never something you should be ashamed of. Except maybe in this instance, what a terrible take. This movie sucks.
I
Me-
thought you were
me
going to
and
say,
Sin-
I love love, and you were going to be like, and I love this beautiful love story in this movie. And I was like,
not gonna defend
I
that.
love the beautiful love story between Rose Byrne and Brad Pitt in this flick. We will get into it. Shami, do you want to do any production history, script to screen?
There are definitely some interesting ones, but the main script to screen is that this was David Benioff's first actual pitch. He got his first movie was a book that he wrote for. It was for a thesis or a master's that then he got optioned and then wrote the screenplay for himself. Pitched just the Iliad, like basically went in and pitched the story of the Iliad, which is a great. I think it's fair to say he does love history and he loves reading all of this stuff.
He certainly
But
does.
it is also kind of feels like I forgot to do my homework pitch, or it's like, fuck, what's the...
So what do you have for us today? The Bible. No, that's already done.
Troy, you heard about this horse, dude? Really good stuff. He pitched it, and then at the end of the pitch, the producer was like, when can you have it by? Apparently, it just went wonderfully, and then pretty much went into production.
Classic David Benioff story.
7 months
He
later, it was really
Didn't
quick.
try
turnaround.
very hard, and it went
Nailed
perfectly
it.
for him.
And then
went on to do Game of
Game of
Thrones,
Thrones.
correct?
Went on
Yes,
to do
just
Game of Thrones.
For those who are not Benioff heads, I don't think anyone is.
Everyone loves Benioff. No, for me, I'm a Weiss guy. Of the Benioff and Weiss duo, I'm a Weiss guy.
But yeah,
Is that a
was
new
really
game?
Weiss
production
so
stuff.
serious.
Are you a vampire or a werewolf, or are you Benioff or a
Are you
Weiss?
Benioff or Weiss?
I'm a Benioff.
You're definitely
Yeah,
a Benioff.
you are a Benioff.
I think I'm actually a Benioff as well. when I think
Oh, yeah, we got a big Weiss
I'm
man
a
over
Weissy.
here. Yeah, and then Christopher Nolan was initially meant to direct this, and again, Nolan was meant to direct this, turned it down.
Why get Nolan when you can get Petersen?
Yeah, well, because Wolfgang
Air Force
Petersen picked
One,
it up.
let's go.
Because
I love Wolfgang Petersen, to be clear.
Yeah.
Wolfgang Petersen is so innocent in this movie.
And then, weirdly, Wolfgang Petersen reportedly may have only taken this because he turned down the script for Gladiator. Speaking of Gladiator.
Right.
So
And
he
he's
said-
like, I'm not making that same mistake again.
Yeah, and it's very much it's the Sean Connery doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen after turning down The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It was a weird near miss that just repeated and then picked up what is even I can admit a much worse script.
Troy?
Yeah.
Then Gladiator.
Than Gladiator?
Yeah, I can admit that.
Okay, good.
cool. Just
Okay.
checking that we
We've
don't
got
have
a
to fire you.
baseline.
I'm not going to talk about which I prefer.
Yeah, I think obviously at the time they were obviously trying to recreate the insane success that Gladiator had and bring back the, what is it called, sandals and swords
Yeah,
epics?
sword and sandals,
Sword
yeah.
and sandals.
I think-
Although I think it's also going off of Lord of the Rings.
Big
It's also
Lord of the
very much
Rings.
being like, can we create a sort of like
Absolutely.
ancient history franchise? How's the ancient history IP?
It's crazy
which
this
of course
didn't
they
get a
still are
sequel.
doing.
Why didn't
What would the sequel?
The Odyssey.
It's the Odyssey,
What the
Sean
fuck do
Bean.
you mean? It's the first most famous sequel. Unless you mean the New Testament and even predate. I
Definitely
actually just
predates.
everything just went white.
Sean Bean as Odysseus? It's interesting.
It would work. I mean, I wouldn't want to. If it was made now, I certainly would prefer not to cast a white man, but if we're going to cast a white man as Odysseus, Sean Bean's Odyssey would have rocked.
Well, speaking of this movie, cast-wise, is completely stacked. I don't think you're going to find a more famous hot cast. Like, actually crazy.
At the time, it
Other
is the
than
hottest
Eric
cast assembled.
Wait, whoa, 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 whoa! What are you saying about Eric?
Okay, I will go to Eric later. But I'll say what I find funny about this is I was looking at a lot of the casting choices. So Brad Pitt did not want to do this movie. That's clear.
Yeah.
He had to because he had signed a picture deal, right? So
Yeah.
he had to do something for the studio and they got him to do this. I think Brad Pitt comes off quite well in this film. I don't think it hurt his career at all. I think he looks fantastic and is probably the most impressive, not performer. So, but I was blinded by his looks.
I have a take on. I think the performance is a great Brad Pitt performance, but it's actually not very good for the movie.
Okay.
Is my kind of take on it.
I think it's an
Do you think that he's the reason the movie failed?
No, I think the movie failed because it's not very good. It's not written very well. But I think what the script is trying to go for, which is a man in conflict with his own ability to kill, is actually is worsened by Brad Pitt's performance because
He looks so good.
he looks so good and never has a flaw or a problem or a like.
That's sort of the point of Achilles, though. He only has one flaw, right?
His heel?
Yeah, no. But like I think
he's meant to be
I think the
blessed.
script is supposed to be about
He's actually the man.
Achilles. He's this
Yeah.
mythical figure, but actually, what he is someone who is in deep conflict with his own ability to kill, like his difficulty and the moral quandary that he faces with the fact that he is a perfect killing machine.
And the idea of like a prophecy saying he will reach like immortality, but it's like just through glory and name. You know, it's
Yes.
not through having a life.
And I
like,
think Brad Pitt's performance is him being very attractive the whole time, which is
See,
great.
I think the script doesn't help him. I think any actor would have had a hard time with that because
I
I think
agree.
that we're kind of putting
Well,
our own
here's
take on
my
it based
pitch.
on how much.
Swap Brian Cox and Brad Pitt.
You know what's wild though? Speaking of Brian Cox, he
That's what-
rallied for this role.
Yeah, he really
wanted to
wanted
play
it. Yeah,
Agamemnon
yeah.
so badly.
A good choice.
And yeah, but he like I love the idea that like, you know, it's just like they should have been fucking thankful that Brian Cox even like turned up to this shitty script. The fact that he like rallied for it.
To be fair, Brian Cox famously not the easiest person to work with. I can't imagine that he was like chilling. He's like on the beaches of Malta in like the most enormous leather. I imagine he was not a particularly chill guy to hang out with.
Apparently, all of the insults for this movie, like all of the insults, like use sack of wine, were just things he said on set.
Anything else do
obviously-
we want to lock in? Or
Let's lock in. I'm ready to
Yeah.
go. In general, it was the big thing that Nigel Phelps talks about is wanting to create an epic scale and very much just grabbing cool things throughout history. Like he knew all the information, but he was like, yeah, when I looked up how big Troy was, it would have looked pretty shit on camera. So I just was like, let's see how big the Egyptians got their shit.
Yeah.
And then it was like, these columns look ugly. Let's put these ones from ancient Mycenae.
a real. This will make your university lecturer, ancient history university lecturer, real mad.
Yeah, they had
Also-
an advisor on, and she was like, "I came in so late into the production, I was already like, what? Why am I here?" She did mention that Brian Cox and Brendan Gleeson were very nice.
Yeah.
There you
They,
go.
they were sitting down complaining about how uncomfortable their shoes were,
I bet
and
they
then
were.
she sat down and joined.
Great.
I think that also important to note that they built this amazing set that got completely destroyed by a storm, and meaning that they had to then rebuild. I think it happened twice.
It got washed out, and then they had to rebuild it because it only got washed out right before when they had to burn it. Because they set the set, like they really do set the set on fire.
Yeah.
It got destroyed, and then they were like, well, we've got to build it back, and then immediately blow it back up. It's really, it felt like the production was cursed,
Yeah.
and that's fun.
And also Eric Bana getting injured and then having to like wait 3 months to then refilm the last scene. He'd been gotten ripped for it, and then he had to stay ripped for the whole
Whilst
time.
injured.
Well, yeah, like it's a whole pile of shit. There's this production has been. You know, they should have made like a, Apocalypse Now style documentary.
Oh, like a
Hearts
Heart
of
of
Darkness,
Darkness. Yeah, yeah.
style about Troy. I would love that. That would be great.
They should make a
Horse of
there's
Darkness.
that TV show about the Godfather, the making of the Godfather called The Contract or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Well, they should do that about Troy. That'd be really funny.
It would be so funny.
Let's
Let's go in.
have a little look at Troy. First thing we see is Warner Brothers Pictures presents, the great Warner Brothers themselves, and then 3,200 years ago. What do we think of the lame, sensible papyrus font that kind of pervades this movie?
What else are you gonna do?
I think anything else.
I think the map.
Give me fucking neon sign, you know? Do American Gigolo, it's all in handwriting. Do something. The fucking papyrus sucks shit.
Yeah, but it's such an aesthetic of those movies. It's such a like iconic thing, and the reason we hate it is because it's so overused in these films. But it is iconically that, and so I agree doing something different. But I feel like if they had different font there, it would have felt weird.
Apparently, this is my favorite logo. That's what my note says.
This is your favorite logo
Apparently.
that we've done?
I don't know which.
Like the favorite title font.
I don't think it's the title font. I think it's the way the logo was presented. But I think it's like the Warner Brothers logo. But I think that's only in the theatrical cut because it's got more of the classical score. Interesting fact as well. Classical score, the score in the theatrical cut and in the director's cut are quite different. Some of the Planet of the Apes themes are used in the director's cut for some reason. Yeah. And in the theatrical cut, you know that like generic Middle Eastern
woman singing.
Written by a white man music, that is used about twice as much, maybe 3 times as much.
It is insane how much that's used in the director's cut.
Yeah.
Assuming that's what we've seen. Now I'm worried that we've actually seen the theatrical cut because that is used so much.
Okay. Yeah, it is literally everything. It's crazy.
That is crazy. There is so much of that.
And I think it's over the Warner Brothers logo. No, I think there's also like marching feet sounds, which helps me.
It's actually,
you can hear the small hops happening.
hear the little small hops.
What is marching but a series of small hops?
So there's a map of ancient Greece. Sean Bean narrates that men are haunted by the vastness of eternity.
Good lines.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what I wrote. So much of this movie is meaningless shit that sounds like it's important. What does that even mean? What has that got to do with the movie?
You need to be glory. You need to be remembered forever. The vastness of eternity is the great fear of never being remembered.
So we start with a big war in Thessaly. There are 2 big armies. Brian Cox appears looking like a snack.
Did you see the CGI dog?
The CGI dog?
You watch the theatrical cut.
It is the theatrical cut.
You watch the theatrical cut.
Okay, what's the CGI dog?
I also watched the theatrical cut. What's the CGI dog?
For some reason...
Okay, wow.
So for some reason, the director's cut starts with a long shot of a CGI dog running through a battlefield. It's kind of good. It's kind of terrible because the CGI looks really weird. But it's just like this long shot following this dog running through a battlefield. I didn't dream this. And it runs through the battlefield and kind of... that's where Odysseus' monologue actually goes over that. It cuts away from the map a lot earlier in the director's cut. And you just see this dog like sniff a dead corpse and then just run around. And the CGI... For some reason, they clearly could only get the dog to do so much. So they CGI'd in a lot of the dog's movements and actions, and it switches between. It's uncanny.
Is it like a long shot on sand? Is that what it is? Because I saw that.
No,
it's like close-up.
It's a close-up of the dog.
No,
You get
so
a
clearly we watched the theatrical cut.
Good. Like then I can say that the director's cut's the better one.
Oh my fucking God.
I've heard the director's cut is just longer with more boobs and a dog. So actually it sounds like a better movie at this point.
Brian Cox is Agamemnon. He says it's a good day for the crows. Do we think I could pull off Brian Cox's hairdo in this movie?
I think very few men other than Brian Cox could. However, I would love to see you try.
Yeah, I reckon.
I think it's worth attempting. Now, is it pretty close to dreadlocks? Yeah, it is.
Well, it's also it's got a little bit of Bram Stoker's Dracula in it because it's got like a little love heart if you look at it from the front because he's got a little bit of a center part.
Yeah, he's got a little the Dracula center part that goes into dreadlocks.
Yeah. Well, they're like
a real look.
Weird braids as well. I think you should 100% do it.
Yeah, I think that'll be normal and not simply won't be cancelled for it.
No, it's fine.
It's too confusing to be cancelled for. That man's appropriating.
So there's
Brian
this
Cox.
Fun fact though, costume design nominated for an Academy Award.
Well deserved.
And it is well deserved.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's not makeup and hair though, so they were robbed, and that's okay.
Yes. So there are these 2 armies. Agamemnon comes up, starts talking to the other guy from the other army, and is like, okay, we'll just have our 2 best fighters fight. One of the guys brings out his huge Goliath style.
Boagreus. Bring out Boagreus. Sure. Nathan Jones, the Colossus of Boggo Road. He was a professional wrestler who got this role. He's Australian, and before his career as a wrestler, he was sentenced to 16 years in jail
no. Oh,
at
dear.
Bogo Road Jail.
You said
At
that
Bogo
too
Road
enthusiastically.
Hold on, for a bunch of armed robberies. Which occurred in Tasmania. But then he was one of Australia's most wanted men at one point before getting out of prison, by all accounts getting completely clean and getting into professional wrestling and then into acting. And I can't find this, but Boagreus is a made-up name. There is no Greek
so they're
equivalent.
using Bogo
So I
Road.
think it's named after his wrestling career, his wrestling moniker, the Colossus of Bogo Road, which is such an Australian thing for this warrior to be called. Dovetailing into my other thought that this movie has a really big Aussie energy in it.
Oh,
for
it
some
does.
reason.
I mean,
Maybe it's a thick Australian accent that happens throughout most of it. I don't know.
could help. Yes, no, I do know what you mean. There is like a Australian where just fucking the fucking fellas are coming. We're on the beach. We're kind of sunsets over the beaches, boys. Like, crack a cold one.
But unlike around other actual like manly Australians, I don't feel out of place.
Bogo Road is in so many things.
It's like
I just
the
watched
most
Boys-
violent jail in Australia, I think.
Yeah, I just
Or
watched
it was
Boy
at one
Swallows
point.
Universe and it's a huge part of that as well. So there you go. Hey,
He discovered
never thought I'd be able to bring up Boy Swallows Universe
Does he-
in a Troy episode, but
Does
here
he
we
swallow
are.
the whole universe at the end?
That's a spoiler. You'll have to
you're
wait
right.
and
Okay,
see.
you're right. I'll have to watch the whole show. So then Agamemnon calls for Achilles. A little kid runs off to go get Achilles. Achilles is sleeping with a bunch of women, wakes up, says, I was having a really nice dream, gets up, has that interaction that you're talking about where he says, that's why no one will remember your name. Then he runs slowly.
goes through his little tent flap that is the same little plastic strips that every chicken shop in Australia has.
Do you want to take over from this point?
So Achilles.
Also, I think it's important to note that Seamus has told me this story about this scene in Troy as if it's like a personal memory of his.
It is.
Maybe 10 to 15 times.
Maybe I think about it probably once a week. Truly, this is my Roman Empire.
is this scene of Brad Pitt. Anyway, continue.
So it's this great long shot following the kid through this sort of like ancient battle encampment, which one I already loved. Brad Pitt says the coldest line. And then he just starts, he finally arrives late. Agamemnon gives Achilles some guff, and you should never give Achilles guff because he goes, he's about to turn around and go back to his tent. And then Agamemnon's good old mate, what did we say his name was? Hephaestus? No, that's a god. Nestor goes, please, Achilles, think about how many lives you could save today by just killing this one
Look
dude.
at the faces of these men.
Which is great. He turns around. Brad Pitt looks like he is about as shitty as you've ever been to be called into work.
Yeah.
And just starts doing this light jog.
He's got real who closed last night energy.
He's got the biggest who closed. And he just does this very gentle jog towards Boagreus. Boagreus hucks a few spears at him. And if there's one rule, spears can only be thrown by Achilles in this movie if you want them to do anything.
If you want them to hit,
you've got to get
Achilles to throw that spear.
And you expect this huge, amazing battle between these two guys that are like the greatest warriors of their time. And Achilles just does his first and his best, unfortunately, little hop. Stabs him in the shoulder, through the neck, and then just like does this gentle jog. Does not change his speed greatly throughout the entire fight, and just turns around and screams, "Is there no one else?" And it is, I still think, my favorite character introduction in any movie.
It is an incredible character introduction for a bad movie.
It is. I will say though, what annoys me about the opening shot, not that Brad Pitt's naked in a pile of women, like sure, that's fine. But I think that one thing about this movie is it does just completely erase any queer reading of the Greek, ancient Greece, particularly Achilles, who is like pretty almost, like if you read most things like that, he is a queer character.
100%.
A queer historical figure. And this movie obviously just went, no, we can't have that. We couldn't possibly have that. So there's like shoehorned romances.
David Benioff is sure that they're just friends.
They're just mates. But like, it's just like, wouldn't it hurt them just to have a couple of guys in the pile?
I 100%
You know what I mean? Like, he could be bi, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, just have a couple of
Look,
naked, have an orgy.
I would be very pro this movie having a bunch of boys.
Also think the
kissing.
character relationships get better if, almost his
Obviously-
relationship with everyone.
With everyone, but the Patroclus thing is like a failure of the movie.
The Patroclus thing's a failure of the
Because
movie.
that's why it doesn't work, because you don't understand why Achilles would do that, because based on the relationship they present, you're like, they're
like,
fine.
They're just friends?
Yeah, they're fine. Like they you don't feel
Yeah.
anything special between
I
them
guess
whatsoever.
they're just cousins.
And in the psychosis in which I watched this movie, I imagine those scenes.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I guess it just doesn't present, and they obviously were
And
clear to like erase any evidence of that, because they were like, it's a big Hollywood film. We couldn't possibly have that. We've got Brad Pitt. Like, so that's the biggest failure of the movie.
I
For
agree. It sucks shit. And
And
I
it
also
does
think
feel like if it was made now, I do actually think that would be different. Do I?
well, it's interesting
I
that you've
think
got
so.
Depends. I think it depends if they were trying to sell the movie worldwide. Like if they were actually going to try and sell it in other regions other
China.
than just the US, and then they would not be able to have the queer character stuff.
I think so too. I actually do. I think 2004
If you were
we
making,
have actually
if you were
come a long
making
way.
a movie about Greek soldiers,
well, they did
you
that.
gotta talk
Well,
about it.
didn't they do that with Alexander the Great? Like the weird Colin Farrell Alexander the Great actually did focus on his queer relationships a bit more. And that was only like 5 years
Is this
later.
a movie? What are you talking about?
There's an Alexander the Great biopic starring Colin Farrell.
And Keira Knightley.
And it focuses more on his queer relationships. It's a lot more of a drama than this, but it does have a similar energy.
So while you look that up, this is so then Brad Pitt walks kind of around and then he says to Agamemnon, imagine a king who could fight his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight? And I think the two things that this movie is about is one, Achilles' relationship with his own kind of ability to kill, as I said, and the idea of like kings don't fight their own battles, and wouldn't that be good? And my big thing about that is like, because I think that's like one of the themes of the movie, and I'm like, that's great, that's fine as a theme. How is that at all relevant to 2004 life? Like, why is that?
The Iraq War.
I guess.
War is young men dying and old men talking. Like that is,
Yeah.
100.
I guess.
There is in 2004, the Iraq War is at its height, and George Bush has just been re-elected. Like that, this is a very 2004 movie in that way.
Sure. I just
feel like
think-
you set me up for that.
no. Like I understand that, but it's just that this movie is so uninterested in the politic of that. Like it's so uninterested in
No,
the
it's interested in the myth of
repercussions.
that. Actually,
Yeah.
I will say the director's cut does focus more on the repercussions.
Right.
And I think that's what all the violence in the director's cut, the violence is a lot more upsetting, and you spend a lot more time in the battle sequences focusing on random soldiers getting killed. And
Interesting.
Hector's
Now that's in the
that's in,
Iraq War sort of
yeah,
zone
there is
for
a
me.
lot
Yeah,
more
okay.
of that. And Hector also, a little extra character moment that is put in, actually focused on a lot more, is Hector is far more concerned about civilians, far more concerned about soldiers' lives in the director's cut. And it is also very much in conflict. It highlights much more the conflict between Hector and the idea of old men following gods.
So then we cut to Brendan Gleeson giving a speech to Orlando Bloom and Eric Bana and Diane Kruger, who is a thing for a minute. She's in Inglourious Bastards and National Treasure. Orlando Bloom sneaks in on Diane Kruger, who is playing Helen, and they bone down. They're having an affair of sorts because Helen is the wife of Brendan Gleeson's character, whose name we all remember. So they're not supposed to be boning at all.
Menelaus.
Yeah, Menelaus. So Orlando Bloom gives her pearls, and she doesn't want him to die. Orlando Bloom is atrocious in this movie. I think it's an interesting choice to cast him, and I understand why he was cast.
Because he played Legolas,
Because
and
he
Paris
played-
is an archer.
Legolas and Pirates of the Caribbean and Mr. Turner, William Turner. And I think I get why the pretty boy thing. He is so bad in this movie, and I think Orlando Bloom has given very good performances. This is very, very bad.
Very
To
bad.
be fair, Paris as a character, as a figure, is kind of the worst, you know, like he's meant to be like a bit of a coward,
Yes.
but he's very pretty, so he has the favor of all the he's got all the goddesses' favor, so he can kind of, he's not meant to have ever done anything. He's very much overshadowed by his brother Hector.
Yeah.
I don't think this is that bad a performance. I think he elicits a lot of rage in me, and I think it kind of works.
I think
and you don't understand why for a second Helen would go with him, but you sort of do. Like, they're both as insufferable as each other in this film. Helen is such an underutilized character in every single adaptation of any of these.
It is awful. It's all like the whole point of like, okay, if she's a face that launched 1,000 ships, show me why. You know what I mean? It's like you don't get from the. If you're about to say the director's cut, I'm gonna fucking dive over this table.
No, I do have something about director's cut, but no, interestingly,
In the director's cut, she's a completely different character.
She's brunette.
Different actor.
in like early versions of the script, and Wolfgang what Wolfgang actually wanted, he was like, I don't really want to show Helen at all. Initially, he was like, I don't want to have this. It's a great way of cutting another woman.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
what I
not
was gonna say.
But his idea was like, there's no way that I can have a figure so like beautiful and engaging that the audience would feel justified, and feels like an impossible thing to put on an actor to play Helen of Troy. And the studios were like, no, fucking here's Diane Kruger, film.
Yeah,
I was
well,
like, okay.
they wanted an unknown actor. It's one of her first screen roles, I'm pretty certain. Because
Yeah.
they were like, we don't want someone recognizable to play Helen, because it's such a, I guess, like pressure kind of role. But I think the point of Helen, though, is sort of like, even though, yes, we call it like the face that launched 1,000 ships, the point is that they were using that as an excuse to wage war. Like that, I think that's kind of what's interesting. Is I would just love to see a movie from her perspective of being used as like an like a full scapegoat just to for war. Like, it could be really interesting.
It's hard to make a movie about that because she really has just no agency in the story is told. I'm sure you could.
I mean, you could make a movie about that, though.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing, where
guess.
it's like, if you're kind of
Sophia
self-aware.
Give it to Sophia Coppola.
Yeah,
She loves that stuff.
I think that Helen is a really fascinating
Yeah.
figure, and I think that no one has ever. Everyone's just kind of, I think, too scared to go there because they're like, she's meant to be this. She launched, like, no one's like, how could we possibly capture that on screen? I'm like, the point is that she probably was just a normal person. You know what I mean? Like, and they actually just fully used her as a scapegoat to wage war. He didn't really give a shit. Like, you know, they don't care that his brother lost his wife. They don't actually care. They just want to take Troy.
And don't kill me with a rock when I say this, but there is just it's not enough, but you couldn't. It would miss.
I'm going to do a
would
small
miss.
hop.
I would go like this.
Yeah, I would go. There is a little bit more focus on Helen in the director's cut. Not a lot, not enough, but there are more moments where it does feel like justified that she's just like, I just was so desperate to get out, and I followed this idiot to his country and ruined the whole world. Like, there is a little bit of extra dialogue where she says to Paris, "You're very young," and then he goes, "We're the same age," and then she goes, "I was never as young as you," which is it is the main thing I'm talking about in terms of more characterization, but that directly it comes directly before the scene where she tries to flee Troy and go back to them, and it doesn't do enough. I cannot stress, I know how problematic the depiction of women in this film is, and they do not have enough agency, but at the very least, director's cut does tip a hat to the idea of characterizing Helen more effectively.
I mean, obviously, if you're going to make a movie about Troy and the Trojan War and everything, you're not, you know, it's very like, you can't just brush over the
Put
fact.
the gods back in if you want more ladies.
I
Sorry.
know. That's one thing about this movie. I really wish if they were so fucking inspired by Lord of the Rings, where is all of the gods? That could have been cool.
David
Please.
Benioff fucking hates magic. Like, that is the whole thing about. I think it's I agree 100%. The movie's way too straight, and my other note is the movie doesn't have enough gods. Still somehow comes out a 10 out of 10 for me.
It could have been a 15.
I got huge problems with it, and I can't.
How would you do the gods? Would you do people in robes? Would you do faces in the sky? Would you do like you cut to them looking down at a pool with the action happening?
The gods turn up on the battlefield in the Iliad. Like, the gods are physical figures fucking around with shit.
I'm asking you, Seamus, if you were given $190 million, how would you depict the gods in? Because if I was Wolfgang Petersen or even Benioff, I would be like, fuck, I don't know how to do that.
I would lean into the idea of possession and avatar a lot, and I
Right.
would have these nebulous figures of like Ares and Athena as these things that you kind of sense, and you really focus on like quiet magic moments of like the stone shifting beneath Hector's feet. But then I would have moments of like random guys being fully possessed to have these conversations, almost like not quite Greek chorus, but have these interludes between these characters happening in the background.
You know what?
they-
Good answer.
That's sick. And also, like, a lot of they do interact in like what is essentially mortal form as well.
Yeah.
Like, that is what happens. Like, even Zeus, for God's sake, comes down and
Even Zeus,
even
for God's sake.
Zeus loves to come down and fuck a mortal.
He
really
yeah.
loves
Yeah.
to fuck with everyone.
God bless him.
Athena,
also-
Athena was part of this story.
Yeah, Athena is a huge part of this story.
I have terrible trouble like separating Roman mythology and Greek mythology. in
So
my head.
I'm pretty certain that
Athena is Athens, which is Greece, so I think it's fine.
yeah, Athena is. I'm pretty certain her favorite is the Odyssey.
Odysseus.
Odysseus is her like
and Poseidon
patron.
fucking hates Odysseus.
Yes, and then during the Trojan War, he gets her offside, and that's why the Odyssey, it takes him 10
'Cause
years to
she-
get back because of she withdraws her favor
Well,
of
it's-
him, her protection of him.
It's also
So that's why the
'cause-
Odyssey ends up being. So I'm pretty certain it's Athena.
And it's also because he fucking pisses off Poseidon because that the big horse was meant to be a gift to Poseidon. Like they even say that in the movie. The Trojan horse is meant to be a gift to Poseidon. So
Why
he
would you give
created
a horse as a gift to Poseidon?
because the Trojans love
Because he doesn't have legs?
Is he a horse girl?
Is Poseidon a horse girl? is
horse
my
girl or Troy
question.
boy. Because the Trojans love horses, but their patron is Apollo and Poseidon, and so it was a gift to Poseidon for a safe trip home. But so you give so it was specifically to Poseidon, the god of the sea, because they're sailing home. But it was a horse because the Trojans are the city of horses. For some reason, seems like it would be hard
Yeah.
to do that when you
You
have.
know, you got so many
big
walls.
walls.
One aspect I think that they didn't even have to go that deep with the gods, that kind of thing. But one thing that is interesting is Achilles is a half god. So
Yeah.
his mother is a water nymph, basically. So
Yeah.
she's immortal, but she's not like a
And in
big
this
god.
movie, she's just like holding a jug of water next to a pool.
That was a real that was a nod, just like a gentle nod, like she's a water nymph, don't worry.
I'm making you a necklace.
Who's desperate for her son to become immortal, because that has happened with Heracles or Hercules or whatever you want to say. Like that has actually happened in the past, and she.
I like
wants
that.
it to be-
I really like that you corrected yourself on Heracles, Hercules. Like
It goes between both, though,
No,
right?
it does go
Yeah,
between
yeah,
both.
yeah.
Heracles
But
is
like, it's like a
Roman.
real thing that we need to be careful that someone's going to come for us for getting it wrong.
Did you not see what happened when they turned against the gods, Lincoln? Do you really want to take 12 years getting home from this recording?
Which god do you think would favor you if one of them had to? Which one do you reckon would give you a
Aries.
Aries?
God of War.
Do you think it's Aries?
I am so fucking up on war right now. I don't know. I think honestly, probably one of the lesser important gods. Maybe I'm not quite. Maybe Apollo. I do like a good story. You know, I like a yarn.
You're a big Apollo guy.
Yeah.
You like the sun.
I hate the
Apollo's
sun.
sun?
I hate the sun. I hate the ocean.
But you like when the sun goes down.
Actually, maybe Athena. I think actually genuinely maybe Athena would
What's
be my
Athena's
gal.
deal?
She's like honor and battle and loving Athens. Culture is a big thing for Athena. I actually think Athena's my gal.
What's the guy
Isn't
with
she
all the
wisdom
eyes?
as well?
Aegis.
Jesus, that was a draw.
Yeah, I think
isn't
Aegis.
is he a titan?
He might not be a god. He might
No,
be
you can pick Aegis.
whatever.
Who cares?
I just know he's like the watcher.
Is it
Actually,
Dionysus is a god of wine or some
Yeah,
shit?
yeah,
That's mine.
Dionysus. Yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
think you might be Hephaestus.
He's the guy
You're
that builds
so
stuff.
Hephaestus.
You got a big building energy.
I don't build stuff.
Yeah, but
I
you
make stuff.
You make stuff.
Sure,
You
sure,
build
sure.
in the
But
metaphorical
he's like
sense.
practical.
Yeah, I do think
He's
that
an
is-
inventor. He like invents things.
Yeah, I
you
don't
can be the
invent
eye
shit,
guy.
though.
Is that just because you got glasses though?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
no. I just like the idea of being the kind of observer, the watcher, Aegis. I
You've
think
never
it's
been.
Aegis.
You're never the observer.
I'm always the. What are you talking
You're an
about?
active participant in everything.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Who's the messenger goss guy? 'Cause I could be
Hermes.
Hermes as well.
Yeah, Hermes is really good.
Just a bit of goss. Don't worry about it.
Little quick boy. Ah man.
All right, wow, we really went off track, guys. If you want to vote on which
Post-
Greek god,
Post your
would
god in the
be-
comments.
Post your Greek god in the comments.
Or your god, I don't care.
Or your real god. Doesn't matter.
But yes,
Sorry, not to say
Vishnu.
that.
I've read a couple
Yeah,
of
1
fanfic.
minute
No.
into this movie.
I know. I just quickly on the women
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
representation because we can't harp on it because obviously it's not great. We'll get there when we meet Rose Byrne's character as well. But
Perfectly drawn.
I have read a lot of adaptations of and I love the idea of exploring kind of how much power women might have actually had behind the scenes. And if you are someone's war prize, if they become attached to you, how much can you whisper in their ear and get them to change certain things? A lot of that stuff with Agamemnon and his war prizes and stuff like that. So he was, and his weakness to women and his kind of greed and that sort of thing. So that is stuff that can be explored there if you're willing to go into the nitty gritty of that, which is just, you know what, they took war prizes. They actually did. That's what happened.
It's crazy that the Hellenic Empire actually was your Roman Empire vampire. You're like up on this shit.
Agamemnon does end up getting slaughtered by his wife. Like, it is the...
Yeah, because he takes Cassandra as
Yeah.
his, so it's who's Hector and anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Another fascinating character who's not really represented enough.
Cassandra, also your role.
Thank you so much.
So-
I did play her in high school
Of course you did.
in Troilus and Cressida.
So Cassandra is a seer who has a curse that
Cassandra Hector's wife?
Cassandra is Hector's sister.
Oh, who we don't meet.
No, she's just cut out
They were
because
like,
she's
there's
too
too
magic.
many women in this movie.
Her whole thing is that her
This
predictions.
movie would be so much better if there was magic in it.
Somehow you can't push the meter any higher though. So Cassandra has a curse on her where she is the most accurate seer, most accurate prophesier. What's the word I'm looking for?
Oracle.
Oracle. She's the most accurate oracle ever blessed by the gods. But her curse
I
is
like
that.
it's accuracy. Isn't
Well,
it? It's
her
very
curse is
She
that.
refuses to sleep with Apollo. It's Apollo, I'm pretty certain.
Yeah,
who
that
curses
checks
her.
out. He does goofy curses.
She's because she's also in this, I guess, like priestess kind of character,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
she
yeah.
won't give up her virtue, and then he is angry, so he curses her.
And her most accurate prophecies will never be believed.
So she's accurate, but the curse is that no one will ever believe her, no matter what she says.
That's pretty cool.
So she's throughout. So if she was in this movie, she would just be shouting, "Don't fight Brad Pitt!" the entire way through.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
weirdly, Hector ends up having that energy of being like, because Hector, that sucks, David. He combined in the director's cut. He must have combined the whole thing of Hector constantly being right and telling everyone, "Don't do this,"
yeah.
and then
with
completely being ignored with
getting rid of a
Cassandra.
female character.
Interesting. That's weird. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, because when Agamemnon goes to pick his war prize, he picks Cassandra, and she's like, we will both be murdered if you pick me. And then he's like, I don't believe your word you say, Cassandra. Goes back, and then his wife murders both of them, and so she dies as well.
No, guys, don't look. Just look at me. How long do you guys think we've been recording for?
2 hours.
An hour?
It's an hour.
Okay, sorry. All right, let's go back in.
I actually want to go back. I want to talk about Orlando Bloom for 2 seconds.
sorry.
I just want to say, because that's
How
where
did
we
we
were.
get here?
That was awesome. I didn't talk that much. I just kind of let you guys rock on. That was awesome. So I want to talk about Orlando Bloom because I've never seen a bigger case of Shakespeare eyes, which is when happens in Australian theatre sometimes, where when people are really trying to make Shakespeare kind of make sense, they get this kind of intense eye look, and Orlando Bloom is doing it constantly. Whenever he has to play anything that isn't intense fear. So, Paris, Orlando Bloom, sneaks Helen away on the boat with the Trojans. Brendan Gleeson, Menelaus, is very pissed off, and he goes to Agamemnon for help. So they decide to go to war against Troy. Cox is delighted that Gleeson has come because he's a warmonger and would love to overtake Troy. If Troy falls, Agamemnon controls the entirety of the Aegean Sea. As you say, it's really not about Helen at all. It's just about Agamemnon's thirst for power.
Absolutely.
So Nestor, John Shrapnel, who plays Nestor, who is a theatre legend, tells Cox that if they want to win the war against Troy, they'll need Achilles.
It needs Achilles myrmidons, and he stumbles over myrmidons so
Myrmidons.
hard. It really seems like he didn't know how to say it and forgot to ask.
Are they called myrmidons because they're in the water somehow? Because I guess they're on the ship?
I think I think you're
Or
right.
because
actually. I don't know.
they don't pronounce words well?
Because he's from
Achilles?
Thetis. Achilles is from Thetis.
Thetis.
So it's not named after his area, which was the first thought. So maybe it is about sea.
Yeah,
Oh, 'cause
they're like mermaids.
Yeah,
They're
sick.
mermaid
Yeah,
boys.
Merboys. Love them even more. I
Merboys.
love Merboys.
I think the scene between Brian Cox and Shepard is incredibly good.
I kind of think every
we are,
scene between Cox and anyone is
I,
good.
I kind of agree, but they're boring. It's like Cox, I think, is doing really good work. This one I like because it actually progresses the story and is like, oh, so this is why this whole thing is happening. It's setting up the entire movie. And it's just fucking two big theatre boys just fucking going at each other, which I'm all about.
You should watch the director's cut because there's a solo scene of Brian
Seamus,
Cox.
I can't tell you how much I'm never going to watch this movie again. This movie will never touch my eyes once more.
And that somehow I feel if I plant the seed enough times, it will grow in your brain like a virus. Because I know you. There's a bit where Brian Cox is drunk by himself stabbing a map of Troy. And he's acting the shit out of it.
God damn it. Sean Bean, who is playing Odysseus, goes to get Achilles, who's training his cousin and definitely not lover Patroclus.
To do this, but there's an amazing scene in the director's cut where Odysseus is introduced. I'll do this really quick. It's really good because they go up, they find Odysseus, and they go, "Where is Odysseus?" And he goes, "Odysseus, that guy fucks my wife and drinks my wine." And the guys go to leave, and he's like, "Are you idiots?" It's a really great introduction scene. We should all look it up on YouTube at the very least. Close.
Odysseus goes to get Achilles, who's training his cousin and definitely not lover Patroclus to fight. Odysseus convinces him by telling him Eric Bana is a really good fighter and he may have someone good to fight against. Brad Pitt talks to his mum about it, who is the legend Julie Christie from McCabe and Mrs. Miller. She's basically like, if you go, you will be famous, but die. And Achilles is like, sick, let's fucking roll. What is this movie about? Is what I wrote.
Exactly the thing you just said. If he stays at home, he will have a wonderful life. He will have a wonderful, he will be remembered by his children, but no one else. If he goes to Troy, his life is over, but his name will last forever.
Yeah.
I think it's a bad thing for a movie to be about. I think this movie sucks.
It makes me feel.
You know what? I don't mind that. I don't mind that as a general. I think it's a terrible presentation of that idea, but I don't mind that idea.
And I think it doesn't have a central conflict in the character, and I think that's the huge problem with the movie is that Achilles isn't in conflict with himself. He doesn't learn.
He starts. It's a tragedy. He almost learns that, and then Patroclus dies, which throws him back into his old ways. That is the turn of the character. He gets to a point where he's willing to go home, and Patroclus dies because Patroclus has inherited his long for glory, his long for pride, to his own detriment, which ruins everyone's lives.
But Brad Pitt doesn't stop because he's like, I don't need to do this, because he stops because he doesn't like Agamemnon.
He stops because he doesn't like Agamemnon, but he decides to go home when he thinks he's fallen. I don't think it's a good love story, but he decides to go home when he thinks he's fallen in love with Briseis, and suddenly he's like, I do want this life. I do want to go home and have the other side of the prophecy.
That's what it's meant to be saying.
And then Patroclus turns up.
My biggest issue with this movie is I don't know who I'm meant to be, who the protagonist is of this film, because it's so spread between but it's not like an epic ensemble piece either. It's so confused. So when we have
it's supposed to be Achilles.
It's a tragedy.
But like it's meant to be Achilles, but I feel like it's not even clear.
Yeah.
It's like we're with Hector now, and like Hector's the only one that makes any sense. They made Hector's character.
He's a foil.
Like you're like, wow, that guy's really speaking some sense here. Like which is great.
I think it's a problem with the performance. I think it's a lot of it is the script is bad, but also the performance I think is not helping because he's not showing conflict. He's not showing interiority, and that's maybe not good for what the script is going for.
Looks like a pot.
He looks like a pot.
A drawing on a pot. Every single angle he strikes, he looks like a drawing on a pot.
Yes, which is incredible. It's an incredible feat of physicality, and it is a great physical performance. But if you wanted to make a movie about the thing that you're talking about,
do you know why I think you don't like it?
Why?
Because it's too close to you.
You think I'm too close to Achilles?
Yes, you are the Achilles of my life.
Are you Odysseus?
You're Patrick.
I'm Patroclus.
I'm sorry, you are.
How am I like Achilles?
Your need for glory, your joy in work, your want for your name to be written in the stars. You are Achilles, buddy.
It's okay. I was given the crazy prophet, so
Yeah, you're telling us we should stop and we ignore it.
Odysseus. Sorry, I need to go back because
it's cool. You guys are just cousins, so it's fine. Okay.
We're just cousins.
We're just cousins. We keep telling everyone.
Everyone needs to leave us alone. We're just cousins. So we skipped over Julie Christie because I was doing a joke. McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Julie Christie, absolute legend.
This cast is stacked.
Well. The cast is insane.
We've got Peter O'Toole in here.
Couldn't ask for more.
Orlando Bloom and Eric Bana return home to Troy.
Wearing the same outfits that Achilles and Patroclus were.
Also, a big problem for me is that the outfits are too similar.
But I love them so much.
I like them too, but just give me like red and blue. Like give me something simple. Doesn't have to be red and blue.
I wonder if I can. I just want red, white, and blue on my seal.
I just want red, white, and blue.
No, you just want the metaphor to be clear about the Iraq War.
Well, I mean, it's a very confused movie, and so I think that to have it might need to be clearer. It's actually muddled and confused.
Yeah.
So
it's like you get into that fight in the Apollonian temple, and I'm like, I don't know who the fuck is who until Brad Pitt shows up.
Yeah,
it's like they're just fucking randoms fighting each other.
Yeah,
a lot is cut from those fights because they're too violent.
So they return home to Troy, and their dad is Peter O'Toole. I think that Peter O'Toole seems actively outraged through a large portion of the script that he has to act with Orlando Bloom. Every time he looks at him, he seems like quite upset that he has to be there.
I'm pretty certain that I read, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, that Peter O'Toole actively despised this movie and walked out.
Didn't like
I
it.
can imagine so.
Yeah, I'll actually fact check that.
Yeah, have a
'cause,
look.
It genuinely like is funny. Like he literally was like, "This is a terrible movie," and like obviously Peter O'Toole, who is famously been in those epic movies.
Banner and O'Toole argue about whether they should do this war or not. In my opinion, they should. That's why I'm watching the movie. Helen and Orlando also argue about whether or not the premise of the movie should happen. In my opinion, yes, it should. That's why I'm there. Then Rose Byrne pops up and she's a priest and she's sad for some reason. Orlando Bloom says, "Beloved cousin, your beauty grows with each new moon," which is a weird thing to say to your cousin.
Not in Greece.
So, and this is the first time that I wrote, "Where's the fucking horse?" I think they should have miniature horses in the background as Easter eggs, like throughout this entire movie.
And they could be actual Easter eggs, because then you could open them up.
And then there'd be a little horse inside.
Why would there be horses in the horse?
Horse? So Agamemnon.
Okay, so we watched a series of short films last night, and the only time I saw Lincoln's eyes brighten was when a horse came on screen.
Horse girl Lincoln confirmed.
Huge horse girl, but a different kind.
Well,
Cut from another cloth.
I can't talk about this. Legally not allowed. So Agamemnon's armies arrive on the beaches of Troy. Brad Pitt is ahead of everyone and goes to storm the beach with 50 men. We haven't talked about Vincent Regan, who is playing Eudorus, who is Brad Pitt's friend, who's in 300, Clash of the Titans, and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which would be a fun series to do.
That is a really good series to do.
I love triremes. I've written here. There's an annoying scene. This is an annoying thing that happens a lot where Eric Bana, he's like, "How long will it take to get the armies ready?" And the guy he's talking to says noon. And then Eric Bana says, "Make it sooner."
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't say how.
That is to be fair, a cliche that still did not have the shine quite worn off it in 2004, which is I want a 2800. Get me it now. It's like that is such a action movie cliche.
Well, how would you like that to be done?
No idea.
What would you like me to change about what I'm doing? Because what's happening is
Less swords, more spears.
There are people on horseback who are riding as quickly as they can towards Troy from the back of Troy to get there as reinforcements
there's a cut
for
scene
Troy.
here where people are cleaning swords.
I'm
So
going
clearly he wants to speed up the sword
I'm going
cleaning.
to throw
A sword.
a sword at you.
Miss.
This movie would be 5 stars if they'd let Achilles and Patroclus suck and fuck. Banner and Pitt both give middling speeches to inspire their troops, and then Pitt's trireme rams the beach, and they storm the beach, and it's really, really good. They form a phalanx.
Really good.
This scene, I think, absolutely rips shreds. It
then
rocks.
maybe my second favorite character of the movie turns up.
Ajax.
My big man Ajax, who I wrote down. Is that Triple H? It's not.
No, that's Tyler Mane. He's in X-Men, The Scorpion King.
Yeah, he's Sabretooth.
Yeah,
in the first
he's
X-Men.
just a wrestler that did a bunch of movies.
Big guy.
Do you want to hear the most 2004 fact ever?
I'd
Yes.
love to hear the most.
So
2004
the
fact
actor
ever.
who is playing Patroclus, Garrett Hedlund,
Yes.
was actually originally cast as Ryan in the OC, landed it, and then landed Troy and left to go film Troy. That's the most 2004 fact.
He'd only been in
That is
Hollywood for a month.
Yeah.
That is a 2004 miss. That is a rough, because
His career never really. But Ben McKenzie, who plays Ryan in the OC,
I
is still
guess
pretty famous.
He's
but,
still
like,
pretty famous, but from the OC.
Garrett Hedlund did like Tron Legacy. There's a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
he did do. I feel like he never quite like took off. And I mean, if I were him, I probably would have picked Troy with Brad Pitt playing
I would too.
over the OC. Yeah, particularly when TV wasn't
I
exactly.
want to work with Wolfgang Petersen. You know?
In 2004, TV wasn't really prestige TV
Yeah.
at that
No,
point. Well, it was
definitely
a start to it. They surprised. It wasn't. I mean,
The
OC
only
wasn't
thing
The
for him
Sopranos.
would be he would be millions of dollars richer, I would imagine.
Probably
from working on the
I
OC.
reckon he's
for-
all right.
I'm
think
sure
he-
he's doing.
I
Fine.
think
But
he's
yeah,
doing
I just
good.
think that's so funny. I was like, that's the most OC shit, the most 2004 thing I've ever heard in my life.
There is an exceptional cut line in the director's cut. Sorry, but I've got it written down, so you have to listen to it.
I don't have to.
Ajax
listen to it.
jumps
I can
out
actually
of the,
do whatever the fuck I want.
Ajax jumps out of the ship with his big hammer and he says, "I am Ajax, breaker of stones. Look upon me in despair," and then crushes someone with a hammer.
Okay,
and
that's so good.
It's so fucking good. Ajax gets so much more bloody gore. He comes across as like the cave troll from the first Lord of the Rings if it was rated R.
So they reach the temple and Eric Bana finally arrives. This movie fucking loves a spear throw, and so do I. Pitt refuses to fight Banner because no one is there to witness the battle. So they kind of overtake the Apollonian temple, and then Banner gets in there and then tries to fight Pitt, but he refuses to fight him because he's like, there's no one here to see us.
He also says it's too early in the day for killing princes, which seems like a nothing line. And then I thought about it. It's like, oh, he knows that the story of Troy ends here if he wins. And he wants this war to go on.
I think Hector and his wife are kind of couple goals. You know, they're pretty good.
Yes.
You think so?
Yes, yes.
Sure.
Honestly, he's the only one that
Saffron
like
Burrows.
seems to like his wife at all.
He loves his wife.
He loves
his
her.
wife loves him.
They love
and
each other.
she sleeps on top of the bed in full clothes, on top of the covers for some reason. So
I
every
do
time
it.
she wakes up.
Absolutely. But yeah, there you go. Hector, good guy.
Saffron Burrows.
Wife guy.
He's a wife.
a
He's
wife
a
guy,
fucking
Hector.
wife guy.
He's a big wife guy.
He
Saffron
is.
Burrows,
Do you think
great
there's
actor.
no
Do you
wife
think this
guys.
movie would be better if Hector was played by Hector Elizondo?
Yes.
Yes. I love Banner, and yes.
Eric Banner is just like, I like him and I think he's good. His physicality is good and everything. It's just like he has a full Australian accent in this movie and it's funny.
great.
It's
I
funny.
think it's awesome.
There's a bit where Orlando Bloom says, "I'm in love with her," and he turns around and looks at him with the biggest "You're a fucking moron, mate" look I've ever seen in my life. It's something about the steeze in his eyes and the way he raises his eyebrows. There is something that looks like the Seki who's just heard someone shit their pants.
Yeah.
Apparently, the director wanted him because he'd seen his work in Chopper, which I find so funny. That's a hilarious thing. I know he'd done things
is
earlier, but apparently
bizarre.
they had to like meet up with him to see if he could. They'd seen that and they're like, "Can he do anything else other than play
he's like,
Chopper?"
and he's like, kind of.
Eric Banner's wild. I fucking
Awesome.
What
Love
a
Eric
great
Bana.
career!
Great guy.
Like
Incredible.
actually, you know, coming from a sketch comedy Australian show.
to now
to
fucking the
a
dry
movie
2
star.
Force of nature, baby. Let's
Is
go.
that
Yeah.
really the subtitle?
The dry 2 Force of
That's
nature.
really good. I need to watch the dries.
Yeah, we gotta get dry.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. In general, I need to dry off.
So, with the beach taken by Achilles, Agamemnon's whole army shows up and sets up on the beach. They have captured Roseburn, and Brad Pitt talks to her. Boring, but Pitt is quite naked throughout it. Base camp of their operations is a big trireme. They live in a big boat.
Love that.
That's the best thing you can do in a movie. That's
Really good.
incredible. Brad Pitt and Cox talks about who history remembers. Cox steals Roseburn for himself, and Brad Pitt is mad as hell.
Calls him a goonbag.
He calls him a sack of wine. Then we cut to the night before the war. Peter O'Toole gives Orlando the sword of Troy to fight Gleason with, because Orlando Bloom has been like, I'm going to settle this war by fighting Helen's ex-husband, mano a mano. And so Peter O'Toole gives him the sword of Troy, again, seeming so unimpressed.
No one has made a worse bet in history.
Yes. Yes. So Banner is then sad with his wife, Saffron Burrows, famous from Law and Order, but she's also in Deep Blue Sea. in
Boston
the Name
Legal,
of the
my
Father.
man.
And of course, your favorite, Boston
Got
Legal.
a great season arc.
Pitt is sad about something. He doesn't want to fight until Agamemnon grovels to give him back. There's
He's sick of doing all the work. He's sick of doing all the work and Agamemnon getting the glory.
Which
Sick
is
of
the
doing all the
same,
work,
the
all the
same,
glory.
same beat.
Yeah.
No character
But no, this
change.
time he actually doesn't do it, and he also wants Bruce Ellis back.
Yeah, he wants Priscilla's back. That's like a whole.
It is Agamemnon being too prideful.
Every
Yes.
time this movie is not doing a big battle, it fucking stinks to shit.
And yet here we are.
Then the
Watching this
war
masterpiece.
starts and the movie is good again. Look at these big armies. Paris offers to fight Gleason. Gleason accepts with the great line, "Tonight I'll drink to your bones."
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The sound of marching feet, like thousands of marching feet, is my ASMR. I just put that, that came on, and I was like, oh my God, I can hear the sandals and the jangling spears. And I just looped it.
Is this a movie that got you into historical reenactment?
Yeah.
Great question.
This
Yes.
and Lord of the Rings, I genuinely probably went to my first historical reenactment session months after this movie.
That's awesome.
It is really important to me.
I'm sorry that we're over here hating on
Honestly,
something so important to you.
Your spears can't touch me.
So then there's a Gleason Orlando 1v1, the thing that we're all here for. I think this fight is awesome. I love it when it cuts to Brian Cox and he just giggles with glee.
Wheezy little laugh.
He just giggles as his friend is just beating up this
He
child.
like points. Brendan Gleeson has the energy of like the most dangerous local at your pub.
Yes.
And it is so much fun to watch someone who, in a movie full of hops, have one guy that's just a fucking nasty little brawler.
Just a big boy.
Yeah.
I think Orlando Bloom is good in this
This
scene.
scene,
I think
I
it's the
agree.
only scene that he's good in.
Phenomenal,
But he
actually.
plays terrified incredibly
Very well.
well.
Sniveling little Paris.
Sniveling little Paris. So then Gleason wins the fight, goes to kill Orlando Bloom, but Banner kind of kills him as he kind of goes to make the final blow. And then there is a big battle at the gate. Agamemnon's armies are too close to Troy's walls, so they lose and have to retreat. Banner kills Ajax, very rude.
Extended fight in the extended edition,
Yes,
really,
really
good.
It's interesting that you talk about all the blood because I've written here digital blood spray has really improved in the intervening 20 years.
It's all
I'm
real.
assuming, yeah, right. I'm assuming. I think in the theatrical cut it is digital blood spray because it's like just these puffs of red that kind of pop up. And I imagine
I actually think they're masking out a lot of the goop.
Sorry, forgive me. We've gone past the sex scene.
No. I
Okay,
think that's
cool.
no. That's coming up.
I have some thoughts.
Then we cut to night 2.
Sorry.
We cut to, no. You've got your priorities straight.
Fast forwarding the battle scene, like
Yeah. So it's the second night of the Trojan War. Brendan Gleeson has his funeral. Weirdly, I got quite emotional here because I was just thinking about Brendan Gleeson passing away in real life, and it made me really sad.
Yeah.
Orlando is complaining that he's a little baby and beg for mercy against Gleeson. He's right to do so. Agamemnon has to get Achilles back. Okay, and then there is a horrifying sexual assault scene interrupted by Achilles coming to save Rose Byrne. Obviously, this is one of the worst things in the movie. Just the shittest thing. I hate it. There's no reason for it to be there. Doesn't mean anything except to, I guess, set up that Rose Byrne doesn't just give up. Anyway, I just think it's
Sucks
like
ass.
it's so bad,
Big
and
David
then
Benioff
is made
bullshit.
so much worse by the fact that then they flirt after he's saved her, and then she goes to kill him, but instead of killing him, they have sex.
I have
Hear
no
me
defense
out.
of it.
I'm not defending this movie, Jesus Christ. But in this situation,
Yeah.
I agree that the way that it's been filmed in this movie and presented, and then with the sexy, angry sex scene as being that's not the right way to show it. But I do think that the reality of that character being a literal war prize, and that the kind of they just don't show it in a way that is kind of meaningful. It's like them trying to make it almost sexy.
Yes.
And that's bad because I think that you shouldn't necessarily. And I'm this is one thing I find complicated because whenever I see a sexual assault scene in a movie, more often than not, it's used as a character device to then make a woman a stronger character or something.
Yeah.
After all, just a shock value and it's a really boring beat. But I do think when it comes to literal war prizes, this shit did happen. It's just not shown in a way she's still technically Achilles' war prize there. This is pretty much just rape again, right? It's not shown in a way that is.
The
he
problem
would
with
never touch her.
again, it's not the thing of you can't show that on screen. It's not prudishness. It's the way that it is presented on screen is immoral.
It's
I find funny, and this is I'm going to probably get cancelled for saying this. So, Achilles.
Hell yeah.
War hero. Glory.
Charlie
this and that.
Davenport's new Netflix special.
Look, I think the issue is trying to make this even romanticized even slightly. I think what would have probably actually happened is Achilles would have absolutely probably raped his war prize. That's just how
course,
they
yeah.
are taught in this that they are deserving of it. A whole reason why he's mad at Agamemnon is that he keeps on taking his war prizes from him. And he's like, I earned this. And it's not a good thing. But I think that having him be different or changed by her, the fact that she's this sassy, he's immediately won over by a sassy war prize. It's just really weird writing, really and it makes it romanticized in a way that's not necessarily interesting. Just don't have it. Just have her be there. I don't know. It's just weird.
If
Anyway.
Achilles
Does that
wa-
make sense?
Yeah.
I'm just they're shying away from the fact that every one of these characters are war criminals. You know?
Yeah.
Achilles is a war god.
Sure,
He
yeah,
is
yeah.
And I think that
And
it's fine to have.
Wouldn't that be an interesting thing for a movie to be about? Is what if
What does it
War
mean?
God was coming to face with their own morality?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. And this movie just doesn't give a shit enough
It's
about
a different. It is about a different thing.
No,
It's
it's
about
not.
glory.
That's what it's trying to be about.
It's about. I think it can be about both. To be
Yeah,
honest.
so
But
absolutely.
look, I'm not saying that I wanted a movie in which we saw this character get raped by Achilles. That's not
No.
what I'm saying. I just think it's interesting choice to make it to try and romanticize it call a spade a spade. You know,
Would it be-
that's what's interesting to me.
Would it be
why?
more interesting if Achilles was not just was not just queer coded, but was in the narrative gay, in love with Patroclus, and his whole time with Brucellus was purely like
A glory thing. Like a
a glory thing, and just him having conversation with this person. It would still be problematic, but would it feel better than there being romance in it?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think that the romance is quite shoehorned in there for no apparent reason.
I kind of, I think that would be, at least it would feel
There's
less.
no way you can...
if Drusilla like humanized Troy for him,
Yeah, that's kind of...
which I guess is like
They were
what
trying
is
to do
supposed to happen,
Yeah.
but it's not what you feel
if you
as
take,
an audience
if you
member.
take out all the sex and this is just about him like understanding the human loss involved,
Yeah.
then I think this works a lot better.
But it's
Yeah.
also like he's done so many wars. Like, how has this never happened before? It's kind of it's just bad characterization.
Look, I don't think any of this works. I think that very broad plot structure could work.
Yeah.
It's just not done well here.
No.
I'll admit that. All the sexual shit in this sucks ass.
Yeah, it's like, honestly, I probably buy Achilles being more of an asexual character in that way, who only really cares about glory and mortality. He's like, and the reason he's so upset that she gets taken away is because it's like it's like a disrespect, you know, as opposed
it's glory.
to like, anyway, I don't know. This is hard.
Even that would work. Like that would work, and you could do the Patroclus. It's like if Achilles is just a sexless war god.
Yeah.
If that's the take on the character, and it's just he's. I'm trying to think of like a robotic.
The
kind of
Terminator.
character. Yeah, well, I'm like a character from Succession almost, like
Right,
someone who
Brian
is
Cox.
just kind of. But I was trying to think of something.
So you're just pushing to have Brian Cox cast as Achilles again.
That's all I'm
This
saying.
is the whole pitch.
No. But
The
if you had,
snake is
and then the
somehow eating its own tail.
the Patroclus thing was about like honor and what's mine, and you can't take him from me, and like that thing, or rather than a half cousin familial thing, that could work, but it doesn't do it. Like it
Doesn't do it.
It's just not interested in mining the character of like trying to make them interesting in a modern lens.
Yeah, my
And I
action
think
figures
that's-
go bounce.
Yes, the action figures do little hops, and I think that is a huge flaw.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because obviously, like thinking about what's his name, Benioff.
David Benioff.
Yeah, and like looking at kind of, you look at Khal Drogo and Daenerys Targaryen,
Sure.
and how she's essentially sold him, and then like and how that kind of plays out is interesting, because it's sort of a version of this.
But
really.
I think also you think about that stuff was written by George R. R. Martin. Those character beats
And written differently.
and when Benioff and Weiss fully took over the story, that's obviously when it entirely kind of dropped off, and the characters got worse and shallower and more surface and
100%.
I just don't.
I don't know where
apologize to David Benioff.
Yeah. I know where I sit. I'm sorry. I made it sound like I wanted to see like a more sexual assault in this movie.
No. I don't.
That's
don't
not
worry,
what
that's
I-
certainly
What
not
it
how
came
we.
across.
That's not how it
Okay.
came across.
Yeah,
I think you're fine.
But I
we
also
understand
think
what
what
you're saying.
happened was Hollywood studio went, you've got two very attractive actors here. You know what sells? Sex sells. We're going to make this like an edgy film, and they're going to bang.
Talking about Hollywood at the time, I did look it up. Alexander, the Colin Farrell biopic, directed by Oliver Stone,
Interesting.
came out 2004.
Wow.
They both came out at the same time, and Troy was much more successful.
Really?
And Colin Farrell was gay in that movie. Like it was very much, this is about Alexander, a gay man trying to like balance, but then
Balance his home life and his war life.
his home life and his empire. Genuinely, that's what it is, and his relationship with his mother. Weird movie.
Darling, why are you crying? I have no more worlds left to conquer.
Oh my God.
I had no idea who the old Jewish voice was
Who's
in
his
that
mother?
story. Well, his mother's Angelina Jolie.
Odysseus tries to convince Achilles to come back, but he refuses. He's still mad at Agamemnon. Again, it's the same beat. It's the same emotions again. It doesn't change. Troy decides to go on the offensive. Eric Banner, of course, thinks that's a bad idea. He's probably right.
Always is.
They attack in the night. Flaming spears.
Flaming bowls.
That's awesome.
so sick.
That's awesome. We're
Close
cooking.
up of Eric Banner's face as a big ball goes past.
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's some of the
Giant
best shit you
fireballs.
can do.
See, that's the thing.
So the Trojans think that Achilles has joined the fight. Him and Hector battle it out. Hector kills him, but it turns out it's Patroclus. They had the same hair, and everyone like stops and is like, "Oh fuck, you've really fucked up now. That's
Everyone-
Achilles' boy."
It is such a funny thing. It's like when it's at the top of John Wick when the fucking Alfie Allen's dad finds out that Alfie Allen killed
Yes.
John Wick's dog, and he just goes, "We're fucked. There is no out. All we can do is run as long as we can and hope that he never finds us. But we are on a timer." It's the exact same thing when Patroclus goes back over with this huge gash in his neck and then drowns in his own blood.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, well,
That's it. I
Our
guess
fu-
that's it for Troy.
that's it for Troy, which is sick.
Which is good.
Yeah.
It's a good scene.
If only the relationship between Patroclus and Achilles was better.
Was
100%.
And would actually earn this
100%.
turn.
But if you have a deep enough
If
psychosis
swapped
whilst you watch this
that
movie,
sex scene with Roseburn and because
Patroclus?
it's in the exact right position,
Yeah.
like it's
100%.
structurally
You could
exactly where it should
honestly,
be.
cut Roseburn completely and
I mean, she is a historical figure. That
Yeah, but
was
I'm
actually a
not sure there's
conflict.
a
Mythological.
1,000 mythological figures.
They
that
handle
aren't in
that so well in Song of Achilles. They have that whole storyline, and it's fucking awesome. Because anyway, but read the book;
Absolutely.
it's really, really good. But yeah, the way that they manage that, it's like
in the Iliad, part of it is also that I believe it is Ares disguises Patroclus to look even more like Achilles.
Right.
So because it's all
rude.
You've got-
Ares rude.
Ares,
The
rude
gods
guy.
rude.
Oh well, and it's all about. It's also the gods also living out their like fury through these mortal pawns.
Yeah, they're petty wars.
Yeah. Old men talk,
So we cut to the and
young men die.
Yes, the Patroclus funeral. I think, again, I don't think this movie is very good. However, Eric Bana looking at his son and thinking about Patroclus while Pitt is looking at the funeral pyre of Patroclus burning. It's a really powerful scene.
Very good.
It's kind of powerful stuff.
Eric Bana's good. Everyone's good.
So next day, Pitt rides up in a carriage to challenge Banner to a fight. He shouts Hector over and over again until he comes down.
And I have maybe the most endorphins released in my brain possible for a human to survive.
it's so good. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's the
It is
best
really
part of
good.
the movie is him yelling Hector.
Yeah.
It's up there with Stella, Hector. It's up there
Sure.
with
Yeah,
the great
yeah.
movie yell
The
of a
great
name.
movie name yells.
Yep.
And there's just like this general understanding. It's like there's no point even shooting at him. Like we can't kill Achilles. We just know it at this point.
His dad saying Nemo in Finding Nemo. Marlon saying Nemo when he shouts Nemo a bunch.
Oh
That's
right.
the other best
I
movie
was
yell.
just thinking
Yeah,
of
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
movie name yells.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty good. You know what's full of good name yells? It's a TV show. Supernatural.
Sure.
They just go,
Sammy!
like every episode is like, Sam!
Bobby!
Like that is
Gas!
that is a great one.
That is
Full
a
of-
good one.
I think there is something.
Do we want to do that for another 2 or 3 minutes?
Bobby!
Pitt rides up in a carriage. Banner accepts. There is an awkward handshake line as Banner says goodbye to everyone that he knows in the movie. Like every side character that we've met in Troy, Banner has to like shake their hand and move on.
And Scarecrow, I think I'll be sad as never to see you again.
Yes, it is either like that or the very ending of Return of the King when Frodo has to say goodbye to anything and it's the
at the
most
wrong bit.
emotional moment and it's like in the middle of the movie
Yeah,
where we
it's
don't know
great.
these characters. And this is when I wrote they really should send flowers and gifts every year upon the year for what they made the women do in this movie. It is fucking shit.
Really bad
Anyway,
stuff.
so then they fight. It is incredible. It's a 6-spear fight. Movies really can be magical. You can have Brad Pitt and Eric Bana fight each other with spear and shield and then cut to Peter O'Toole being like, this is exciting.
There was a bet between. Do you want to take this one?
No, you got it.
There was a bet between Eric Bana and Brad Pitt about they had to give each other $50 for each time the other person hit them during the rehearsals. Brad Pitt walked out with no money, and Eric Bana walked out with, I think, $500.
Yeah. Well, no. Eric Bana, I think, was down. I think he was like negative 400 or
No,
something.
No,
every time.
Brad
No,
Pitt hit him heaps. Like,
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
Brad Pitt
Sorry.
kept him.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then the almost certainly apocryphal story is that the agents of Brad Pitt took Eric Bana aside at one point and were like, "Hey, we love that you guys are so into this. We love that you're having a great time. You're Eric Bana, and we just think you're amazing. That's Brad Pitt. if you touch a hair on his head, you're dead.
I didn't hear
I'm
that.
sure that story is probably apocryphal,
Yeah.
but that's the myth.
I love that they didn't use any stunt doubles for this fight.
Really good.
Looks
Really
good.
important.
It looks fantastic.
Looks
Those
incredible.
two, they had just such a.
Just the fucking
They had the
fellas.
best eye, the fellas. They were most excited for this scene, but yeah, they had to reshoot several, I think, months after, and it was this fight.
It's also a million degrees. Like they were sweating.
Yeah.
So this movie, this also has the line where Eric Bana's like, "Hey, come on, please. After this, let's just let each other have their bodies back. You know, this is a fight between honorable men." And then Achilles just goes, "There are no pacts between lions and dogs." And I was like, "Well, you're speaking to my hindbrain, and I agree."
there are no pacts
between
lions.
lions and men, which
Right.
is even sicker. I can't move on. Can't move on emotionally from that moment. Nor the moment where Achilles screams, "Get up, I will not have a rock take my glory from me."
Yeah.
Which is something I say in normal conversation.
That is something you've said to me several times when playing table tennis or something.
Hector has a lot of bravery and dignity. I think I have a crush on Hector.
Absolutely, you should. He's the only one who is sensible. And I will murder him.
Dude, that's so true. Hector does have a lot of bravery and dignity.
He does. He was right all along, and everyone should just listen to him.
Yeah, he's the only one that gives a shit about civilians or his soldiers.
Yeah, he's just a good guy, and he died.
He's a good fucking guy.
He's a good guy.
He shouldn't have
and
died. He should have died.
He shouldn't have
He
died,
shouldn't
man.
have died, man.
I fucking miss him.
I'll miss him every day.
Hector!
He's in my Instagram bio.
R.I.P. Hector.
Yeah.
3567 BC to 3500 BC.
Yeah. It's going. Actually, maybe I should put that.
Achilles ties Hector to his cart, his carriage, and then
Chariot.
chariot. Yeah, what did I say? And then drives him back to the camp. Then we cut to night 4, I guess, and we get my favorite scene in the whole movie, which is Peter O'Toole sneaking into Achilles' camp, begging him for his son's body back.
So good.
So
O'Toole is so locked in for something that, clearly he didn't want to be there.
Brad Pitt gets better in this scene because of
And
him.
Brad Pitt's so good. Yeah.
I read Diana Kruger said that she's never worked with a ruder actor. I think he was pretty drunk on set.
Oh,
He,
100%.
That man was
Allegedly.
wasted during this scene,
Allegedly.
probably.
But
But he's
fucking
incredible.
Credit where credit's due. Can turn a good fucking performance.
Yeah, and then he says, "Let me wash his body. Let me say the prayers."
He
I tear up.
He walks in.
Getting goosebumps right now
He
thinking about it.
walks in and he doesn't say a single word, and he kisses Brad Pitt's hand and he goes, "I have now endured what no man on earth has had to endure before. I have kissed the hands of the man that killed my son." And then Brad Pitt just goes, Priam.
and then Peter O'Toole goes, "Vroom, vroom, I'm a hybrid car. I'm very energy efficient."
Transforms. It's the sickest scene in
This is
cinema.
Nigel Phelps' first Transformer film in disguise.
Yes, Peter O'Toole as Toyota Prius.
Where it started. Nigel, love you.
Fuck, that's good shit. And then he also says, "You have taken everything from me." And then I put in brackets, Primus actively admitting Paris isn't shit.
What happened in the director's cut?
That line. And then after Brad Pitt leaves, you stay with Tool a little bit longer.
And he turns into a Prius. His name is Priam for the people watching at home.
So one thing that is what could have been explored in this movie, which wasn't, is I think the idea of like Hector being more of just a human or someone who cares as opposed and doesn't care about his own glory that much.
I think it is in
It
there.
is in the movie, but I think like it could have been kind of what I would have done if I directed this again. Would have had more.
And you
Would have had
should've.
some gay stuff in there for sure.
Hell, you
Would have
did.
had more sexual assault. No, sorry, bad. No.
Charlie Davenport taking the audience hostage.
Live at the Apollo.
Live at the Apollo.
The Apollo.
Live at the Apollo Temple. Charlie Davenport
Here
with
from the
outrage.
Okay, sorry. Second, I would have had the goddess and
It's
god
just a
magic.
picture of you with black tape over your
Oh
mouth.
my god. No.
And a sign that says "Can't be silenced."
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Surely I'm coming out of the Trojan horse in this picture. Sorry, I don't know why.
Anyway, you
Anyway,
want more sexual assault in the film.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I would like, yes, more LGBTQI representation from clearly queer characters. Second of all, I'd like the magic and the goddesses. Absolutely, would be fantastic. And the gods. I think this movie would have been great if they treated it more like a classic war film where you spend as much time with Achilles as you do with Hector, and you have a dual protagonist situation clearly.
I think
And
that's
you
what
see
it's going
both
for,
sides. I know it tries,
but
but
it
then it's like not quite there.
Well,
and
it's because
like
Hector doesn't have enough shit going on.
he does though.
He's
I mean, maybe in like the real
in the
story. I just mean obviously not a real story, all made up.
How dare you?
I gotta go change my bio.
I think there's heaps more. I think the juxtaposition between like people who are dealing with as like mere mortals, dealing with someone who has the kind of like blessing of God and like the prophecy saying that he will. Like it's like there's so many things in there.
There is a lot more of Hector talking about how we got to stop relying on the gods and just look at how many people are dying.
Yeah.
In the director's cut.
Wow. Well, so basically, I'm pitching the director's cut at this point.
A better version.
It's just a lot of missed opportunities, and that's the biggest thing. This movie isn't necessarily as bad as we're kind of saying. There's things
no,
like
it's pretty bad.
It's pretty
this
bad.
movie's pretty bad.
But I think the thing about it though is it's just such a huge missed opportunity, and that's the biggest painful kind of like, and the fact that it wasn't that well received.
That's probably due to it being quite bad. I'd say.
Yes. But I mean, like, that's what I mean, wasted opportunity where you're kind of like, there's so much to do here, and there's so much to talk about, so many interesting angles, and they went with the least interesting ideas, and I think narratively it suffers. War scenes, fantastic. Production design, it's not historically accurate, but I like that they embrace that.
I don't think that matters. When you're telling this like mythological story, like who cares that you're using
It's a
Corinthian
myth.
columns?
Yeah, and Eric Bana talks about how he leant down to tie his sandal at one point, and he looked down and he looked at the tiles on the floor, and he was like, holy fuck, that's not even grouted. That's using like an old technique. Every single inch of the set was designed.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Interesting that we just talked about how bad this movie is, yet my next note is Troy maybe a masterpiece? 10 out of 10 question mark?
It's almost not bad enough to be funny bad either.
I don't think there's a single thing funny about it.
That's the
I would
thing.
agree. I would say that there's no jokes in the movie.
It's
The movie is anti-fun.
You sack of wine.
Yeah, I agree. This movie is not bad enough to actually have a good time watching
Yeah,
it with your friends.
It's in that unfortunate
It's in that
middling.
unfortunate middling, just kind of sucks zone.
Interesting.
It is horse time. The horse really should, for me, feel like a victory. It should be this like Ocean's 11-y thing, but
Tragedy.
instead it is a very sad tragedy when the horse shows up. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So they do the horse. Odysseus has an idea for the horse. It's Odysseus, right, that has the idea for the horse?
Yeah.
Yeah. The horse goes inside Troy. They open the gates. Army gets in. There are no guards watching the horse. Sure.
Beautiful horse design.
The horse is fan-fucking-tastic.
Got to shout out that horse was
Looks
designed
great.
by Nigel Phelps based on a picture that was brought to him, a photograph of a art piece, which is a gorilla made of tires. And he was like, that's what I want to go for, crazily.
Interesting.
And then he wanted to all look like it was made up of pieces of the ships.
Yeah,
it was
which it does.
could only be things that they had, and it looks fucking sick.
It
It
looks
does.
awesome.
It's honestly probably the best part of this movie. Is
And it
the
should
Trojan
feel
horse.
like a victory.
I like that it feels tragic.
I don't agree because I
'Cause-
think that Achilles doesn't want to be in this war, but he was like his
It's a
hand
tragedy.
was kind of, and I think that like and in this movie we've kind of gotten to like we're kind of meant to be sympathetic
Yeah,
of the
the
resonance
Greeks,
of
the
Troy,
bad
right?
guys.
And we're the bad guys now coming in. I disagree. I don't think it should feel like a
I
triumph.
like that it has this sort of ominous,
didn't-
awful look to it.
It's a
in
big
the end,
horse.
it's like the war. The
Yeah,
mess,
you just
this
like
is an anti-war
horses.
film, right?
And
There
it
we
might be
go.
an anti-horse film, Lincoln. That's why you don't like it. It's about you, but it's anti-horse.
I don't mind that it's not.
It's about me if I didn't like. Well, I guess Achilles does love horses. It's about the tragedy
Achilles
of loving
doesn't
horses.
love horses.
Achilles
run
is just
everywhere.
a tool being used by Agamemnon, who is clearly the antagonist of this film.
Bit of a tool. He goes, you're a much better king than Agamemnon, the one I'm fighting for. When he says goodbye to Toyota Prius.
Yes, he does.
And it's like, what's the point of this? And then the horse happens. Achilles wasn't actually a part of the Trojan horse, I don't think. Because you know that this
That would
movie
check
makes
out.
it seem like the Trojan War went for 5 days, actually went for like
10 years.
10 years.
I also think Achilles
So,
dies in
yeah.
a completely different place. Like, he still gets shot in the ankle, but I think it's in an actual war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, just some fun facts. So, we're not here to fact check Troy.
No.
Or we'll be here all day. More so.
So Troy is sacked, and we're supposed to feel sad, of course. Very bizarre Very bizarre. No movie should be... sorry. This is when... Sorry.
I feel like I've finally killed his love of film.
No movie should be more interested in having a clear protagonist-antagonist relationship than this one, and it so clearly has no interest in that style of Hollywood filmmaking, and hews much closer to, I imagine, the Iliad
Greek
itself.
tragedy.
And I think that's the wrong choice.
I think it's too half and half, to be honest. If I'm
It
taking
didn't
my...
make a decision.
If I am taking my... Sorry, you go.
No, you go.
If I'm taking off my rose-tinted helmet, I think that, it is too half and half. It is too half Hollywood, too half tragedy. I love that it's got the plot structure of a tragedy. I just don't think it's done well. But
I like if this was in like Green Knight mode, where it actually feels
Amazing.
like a myth,
Yeah.
where you're like watching.
if the gods were in it, if
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that could be improved. It
just
should
needs
also
magic.
not be a totally white cast. But here I am.
I actually be more interested in the tragedy version of this, but I think like it's they just half-assed all of it,
It is a
then
half-assed
then it
tragedy.
was just completely middling. As we were saying, it's confused about what it's trying to do, and I feel like it could have gone down one path of like clear Hollywood storytelling in that way.
Just
Probably
feels like
would have
that's
been
what it
better.
wants to do the whole time.
I feel like it wanted to be something else, and the Hollywood production or like the studio was like, "Hang on, who's the bad
Nah,
guy?"
I
That's
think this
David
is
Benioff.
Benioff. I think this is Benioff just being like, I can thread both needles.
Yeah, it is. And like,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it
that's
makes you
fair.
want to feel kind of happy when Achilles dies, which is the opposite of a tragedy. It, like, the thing is, he dies because he learns his lesson too late. Should be the way that this works.
Sure.
And that's kind of what happens, but he dies heroically. It should be a tragic death. And yeah, it's fine.
But he learns his lesson. He learns his lesson when he meets Rose Byrne,
and then
and then
rejects the lesson.
rejects the lesson when Patroclus dies,
And then
when does he
relearns it from
relearn
Prius.
From Priam.
Whom?
So in this, do they talk about any like I don't because I don't have like prophecy kind of thing. But I'm pretty certain, and I could be so
Sorry, are
wrong
you saying
about
that
this.
you've never had a prophecy about yourself? Is that you're like I can't speak to it from experience?
It's a bit of a shame, but I've heard of these things. No, but in this, I think the whole idea was that Achilles knew he was going to die at the Battle of Troy, right? It was like the idea that he would not live a long life. He would die being immortal in battle.
The closest he get in this movie, it gets to admitting that is, and don't spear me, in the director's cut, there's an added line where he asks his mother, is this prophecy true? And she says, yes, I know it is.
Yeah.
So the one magic thing is that he does know that if he goes to Troy, he dies.
Yes. And I think that what could be interesting is that him trying to leave Troy in that state is actually him choosing life and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
like
what I
he
think
actually
it
was scared. It's trying to do
is.
that in
Yeah.
a way. But I think that Patroclus, like,
Yeah.
I've seen a version, I've read a version in which Patroclus, the reason to go back into, the reason he dresses up as Achilles is because he wants is because they're losing the war so badly when Achilles is not fighting for them that he goes, all right, I want to save these men's lives. But I also don't want Achilles to go back into battle. I want him to leave because he will die and I love him.
Good stuff.
So he dresses up and thinks that if he leads the troops and if they still think that Achilles is fighting for them because they've cottoned on that he isn't, that they will withdraw from that particular battle. And so he does that and then gets killed, and then Achilles ends up doubling down, which is more interesting, I think.
100%.
Way more interesting. Brad Pitt goes to find Rose Byrne. Simply, who cares? Cox is having the best time of his life, yelling, "Let it burn." They sack Troy some more. Cox kills Peter O'Toole. Rose Byrne kills Cox. Orlando Bloom shoots Achilles through the heel. Achilles dies. Sad?
This is a great sequence of Orlando Bloom doing no acting.
Just the
because
worst.
Roseburne's just being like, stop shooting. And the way it's framed is it looks like, I don't know, he's deaf and he just keeps on shooting
Yeah.
Achilles despite everyone in the room saying, stop, Orlando. Really funny to me.
So Sean Bean then has a closing monologue, which is basically just the same monologue from the beginning, but now it's supposed to mean so much more to us. Don't fucking start. Then the movie really ends with a big huh? And one of the worst ending songs I've ever heard.
Ending song not in the extended edition actually ends, for some reason, on the CGI dog. There's another dog.
Bizarre choice. Bizarre choice.
It's a bizarre choice.
So,
Troy.
all right. Who earned their paycheck?
I have.
Tyler Mane. I think Ajax. I think it's actually a really good performance.
I agree.
I think it's like there's a few Tyler Mane performances. I don't think he's has an enormous amount of range as an actor, but I think he's really, really good in this. I
You've
think
got to
he's
see
really
him in the
solid.
extended cut. You missed his best line. I am Ajax, breaker of stones. Look upon me and despair. I might get that tattooed on my butt. My guy is David Leitch.
Leach?
David Leitch or David Leitch, who is one of these stunt
coordinators
directors on this,
who's just directed.
who went on to direct John Wick.
Amazing.
So yeah, the
He directed with Chad Stahelski.
Yes,
who
yes.
overtook.
He was one of the co-directors of John Wick.
He was the Matrix. Leach and Stahelski were
A
the
ton
Matrix.
of shit. Yeah, he was on that, and then he worked on this. Did a lot of the fight choreography for this.
And he's got a new movie with Ryan Gosling, I think.
The Fall Guy.
The Fall Guy that was filmed in Sydney.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to nominate Bob Ringwood, who is the costume designer for this movie.
Costumes are really
100%
good.
good
Little
pick.
skirts.
Lots of little skirts. Whose filmography includes the 1984 Dune,
Sick.
Batman, 1989.
Oh, really?
Friends. I bet he brought him
There you
along.
go. Alien 3, Batman Returns,
Alien 3.
Demolition Man.
Demolition Man and not Judge Dredd. Man, these guys are like...
Yeah, swapping.
AI, Artificial Intelligence.
Incredible looking movie.
And the last movie is Troy. Nominated for an Oscar for this, lost out to The Aviator. It's a pretty well costume design.
Yeah, the movie looks really good.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that the costumes are particularly good in this movie.
Yeah.
They don't look, and it's so easy to look costumey because they are costumes. But you know what I mean? Like sometimes you look something, you're like, what are they wearing? What are they doing?
Yeah.
This one, they kind of look, they look good. The skirts look good.
I've spent like a significant portion of this podcast searching for one on eBay.
Searching for a little skirt?
Searching for the blue dealie.
The blue dealie.
The blue dealie. It's the sailing / sword practicing outfits that they have. I
Oh.
love that blue dealie.
I also want
You
to.
would look really funny in one of those.
That looks beautiful.
I also want to shout out the child at the start of the movie. I think he does a great job.
He does really good.
Like that goes and talks to Brad Pitt.
yeah,
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
biggest
yeah,
man
yeah.
I've ever
And he's
seen. I
like-
wouldn't want to fight him.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, sir, it is the afternoon," or something like that.
It is the afternoon is great.
I don't know. But yeah, why do they set Achilles up as being like some party animal orgy guy? It's just not like that at all.
Yeah, he doesn't
He
like
doesn't do
return
that. That
to
is
that
not.
lifestyle.
That is not him even slightly. They just were like, wanted to be like a rock star.
Because it's cool, yeah. Because
cool
it's
just
swagger.
cool.
Brad
Like,
Pitt.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great character introduction. Is it as good as Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Talented Mr. Ripley?
I
Great
love that movie, but
Question.
it's better.
No, I think Philip Seymour Hoffman arriving in a little convertible, going bah, bah, honking, and then like flipping out of it.
Then checking out two women
Yeah.
in a most obnoxious way, like,
Don't
and
you
then
just want
walking
to?
in, like, it is one
Don't
of
you
the
just
best.
want to fuck everyone you've ever met just once? Is his line? It's really good. It's maybe number 2.
That is such a good character introduction.
Such an amazing character in a much better film, and yet here, I mean, I've got to ask it, and this is probably a question that is only interesting for my response: is it better than Holes?
I'm so interested to hear what you have to say about this.
I don't know what I'm gonna say.
Okay, I'm going to say it is a worse movie.
Worst
than
movie than
Holes.
Holes.
When I'm not,
Not by like that much.
when I'm not experiencing
Bad script.
when I'm not experiencing a full psychotic break,
Which, to be fair, I'm experiencing because we've been in this room for 2 hours.
So
and
long.
I'm kind of going crazy.
I would say no. I think on everything added up, it is not as good as Holes. But I just,
but when you're watching it,
it's better.
Yeah.
It's better than Holes. It's better than Holes. We need to cover Holes to see if I'm just recency biased, but fuck, this movie beats Holes.
wow.
It's crazy.
Troy. The movie Troy.
Troy. I love it.
It's not very good.
It's great. It's a 5 out of 10. That's a 10 out of 10 somehow.
Wow.
I have
Exist.
the tiny. Do we want to cover Oscars, or are we out of steam?
No, I mean, I'm not out of steam, but is there anything we want? My only thing that I wanted to say about the Oscars, also, this will come out far beyond
Oh,
when the
yeah.
nominations come out. The Oscar nominations just came out today. Boy and Heron is not nominated for Best Picture, which is wrong. That's
Actually,
incorrect.
my review for The Boy and the Heron was nominated for Best Picture.
Really?
So if you
Wow.
want to check that, sorry,
Okay.
shameless plug.
Wow.
No, I
Gateway to anime.
Boy and the Heron. No, I agree.
Best
Boy and the Heron.
It's like Sam has to get up. The producer has to get up.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's actually
yeah.
it'll be Joss.
It's Joss.
Joss will get
He's
up
going
and
to the award
accept the
ceremony.
award.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
nice to have an Oscar-winning producer involved in our podcast.
It would be great. I want to ask quickly,
Yeah, shoot.
if you could play any character, like actually seriously, like, you have to be cast in this movie.
I have
and
to be
you
cast?
You have to do it. Like you have to do it, and you have to think what you can bring
it's
to the table. Who are
pretty-
you going to play?
It has to be Paris
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Although I don't like, I'm not
That's pretty.
as pretty.
No, that's no slight at you.
It's not. But I think the sniveling worm. That's my that's my
no.
ballpark. That's my, that's my wheelhouse.
I'm Hestus. I'm Achilles' best friend.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like
Yeah, you're the guy that comes in and is like,
I
"Oh,
kinda-
whoa.
look like I'm probably gonna look like him in about 4 years.
Yeah, 4's generous."
Yeah. If I grew my before my haircut, I also feel like I could play that like I could very well play a guy that's obsessed with Achilles.
In a weirdly horny episode between you and me for some reason.
It's been my life's honor to fight with you, sir. Would be my exact delivery.
I think my hands are tied here. I've got 3 to choose from.
I don't.
Imagine
There
if
is
I was like,
there is
hey guys,
nothing
Helen
gender
of Troy.
essentialist about this casting.
I think you'd be a good Hector.
Guys, I'm a really great Helen of Troy. Just a humble. No. In fact, can I be? I thought it meant like I actually have to play it. I have to do the role. Me.
Yeah,
You
but
came up
this
with
is
this idea.
this is where
Yeah.
someone else is directing it who doesn't care about
All right.
kind
Probably
of gender necessarily.
hear me out. Hector or Ulysses. Sean
writer?
Penn's character.
Oh, Odysseus.
Odysseus. Sorry, Ulysses.
I think
Hang on.
I want another
Think
go at this
big,
story.
Think big.
Well, there is that extremely strange.
Ulysses.
What's the name of the guy that writes all the histories after this?
Which
Charlie,
one?
You mentioned him earlier. He's like the main writer who then goes on to found Troy. There's a moment where Rome. There's a moment where Paris hands the
Romulus found fun.
It's not him, but it's his line. Anyway, there's a very weird like setup for a sequel where the sword of Troy gets passed to him as he runs away.
Oh, right.
And it's a famous Greek writer whose line is then meant on to go and found Rome, implying that Rome is Troy too. It's the weirdest.
That is
pick.
bizarre.
It's a weird Avengers cameo moment for no one. You could play that if you
All
really
right, I'll
wanted to
play
play
that.
the writer.
I'm gonna play the writer. Watch this space.
No. I think Hector's good. Priam would be funny.
Priam would be really good.
Let me wash my son's body.
Cassandra would be really good.
Yeah, it's not in the film at all.
Cassandra and
You
Hector
can't
get
just
rolled
make
together.
up scenes in the film in your head. You're not allowed.
Guys, there is no director's cut.
It never has been.
Oh my god, could you imagine? That would be the
I-
best bit.
That would be a good mastermind. Who would you recast today as Achilles, Hector?
I would
and-
love Oscar Isaacs as Achilles.
as Achilles.
I think he'd be an amazing
kind of-
He
Achilles.
is too old for
He's
Achilles.
too old
He's like
now.
now 40.
We're
yeah,
saying
he's
now,
like
2023. You're casting director
Yeah.
for this movie. Actors now.
What
I'm just gonna look up
about
the
like
word actors.
what about like Mike Feist as Hector?
Ooh, what about Adam Driver as?
As who? As Hector?
No, I think Ajax actually.
I mean, but
Adam
you'd
Driver
have to
with a
bump
big-
up that role.
Adam Driver with the big hammer hopping off, going.
Be incredible.
Yeah, pretty cool.
But
Mike
I don't think Driver's
Feist-
not going to do it. You know,
It's fascinating to
Mike
look at the
Feist
list
is
that
like
comes
a
up when you look up
Patroclus to
actors.
me. Like he's like a that.
he'd be
yeah.
good. But
Harry Styles should be
Paris.
Paris. I actually had that in my notes of like I can't wait to see him in the remake.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Oh,
You don't want
Paris.
Timmy Chalamet as Paris.
No.
Again, he probably wouldn't do it.
I think
I
it,
guess, but also we're not actually pitching
it would be good to have
Austin
more
Butler
actually people of Greek.
as
as
Paris.
not as Achilles.
No, God no.
Austin Butler as
No,
Achilles.
He's not. He's too like weedy.
You were going to say Twinkie.
I was gonna say Twinkie.
I mean, Timothy is a good Paris choice. He's meant to be like beautiful and touched by the gods, and I think he'd be good. A good choice.
I think it would be good, and I don't want. It would be good to have more people of Greek heritage.
Who's Priam? Oh yeah, I guess we should probably cast.
Yeah, stop casting
Jason,
white English
Jason
boys.
Mantzoukas
Yeah.
as Hector.
Jason Mantzoukas. I'm just keep on going back to Ajax. I just want 9 Ajaxes.
Who is Priam today?
Now.
These days?
Brian Cox.
Hector Elizondo.
Hector Elizondo? I don't think so. He's too. He doesn't have the. It has to be like
What
a.
about Hector Elizondo as Agamemnon?
Now we're talking. That I'm interested in. Maybe too
Me?
sexy.
This is hard.
Well, Agamemnon, it's still Brian Cox. I think
Honestly?
it's still him.
Have we had a good traditional adaptation of the Odyssey?
No, I don't
No,
think
the
so.
best is O Brother Where Art Thou,
Yeah.
and the Coen brothers
It's not
famously
traditional.
not traditional. Famously, O Brother Where Art Thou, the Coen brothers didn't read the Odyssey.
Yeah.
They were like, we get the gist. And it's
Wikipedia.
a masterpiece.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see that actually. It was a pretty.
It would
epic
be
story.
a 8-part miniseries now, though.
It'd be pretty cool. You got like Cersei. You've got actually the book from Cersei's perspective is really good.
Get
as well.
Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan for
For
Cersei.
Cersei, and you got Calypso. You've got like all these like he navigates his way around. he has a bad time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one that survives. Sean Bean playing the only one that survives. What a
it would be
wild-
great.
That actually,
wild
that would
casting
actually be
choice.
great.
And the fun thing is that you could still put Sean Bean in that role now because there is literally 20 years between the start of the Iliad and the end of the Odyssey. And
Yeah.
we are now 20 years bang on from when this movie came
You
out.
want to do a direct sequel
Yeah,
to Troy?
I want to do it right now.
Benioff
And I
is
want to
back.
put the gods back in.
And do you think Orlando Bloom pops up at one point? He survives this movie, right? Yes.
Yeah, but the Odyssey is like a sequel to the Iliad in the same way that the Hobbit movies are a sequel to the Lord of the Rings. Like they are so separate from the real story.
I understand that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, everything that's happening back on like solid ground is kind of irrelevant at the time. Yeah,
They're
there's
like
just-
we're fucking boating around.
yeah, he's
Tri-rims,
okay,
baby, let's go.
yeah, I
It's a-
mean,
it's a
he's
lot
a
more
wife guy
boats.
as well. He's a real wife guy.
Big wife guy.
Sick.
Yeah, although he has to bang heaps of goddesses. He's like, oh no, all these
I
goddesses want
gotta
to
fuck
me.
all these
A lot
goddesses.
of
He's
turning
like,
into
"Oh,
pigs.
oopsie."
Cyclopses are in there.
It's cool.
It's a good little tale.
This movie, I wish I had the same enthusiasm that you have.
I don't know where it comes from. Actually, I do. My lizard brain. It is.
Alright.
It's got a couple of diodes shoved right in.
And also being 9 years old in 2004.
Yeah, it still works though. Those hops, man. Those hops and pops.
So join us next week where we will be talking about Nigel Phelps' final one, I believe, for him.
That's correct.
Detective Pikachu. So a bit of a turn.
Unless we do Thor: Love and Thunder.
I don't know if I can be the only person absolutely enamored with something twice in a row that I kind of know is bad.
To be fair, this movie I don't think is very good. Thor: Love and Thunder is a movie that I despise. I think that would be less fun.
I like 'em both.
I also think that we've kind of made a rule for ourselves that we can't do sequels, which is kind of interesting because like unless
Have we made that rule for ourselves?
well, it just makes sense. I think if we're talking about
All right.
like I mean we haven't done them yet, have we?
We haven't. I don't think we've done a sequel yet, but I think it's funny to kind of jump in
Midway
at like
through.
Transformers 6 or something.
True. Well, hey, we did not make that decision. I just said that. Hey, Watch This Space. Detective Pikachu is next time. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen it,
I'm
so
stoked
we'll see.
about it.
And such a different thing. And I like the idea that action production design and action movies have evolved in certain ways and like what's trending.
think
Hashtag
It's
action
also
film.
it's also interesting as our first big. No, it's not. It's a sequel to IP movies where you look at the IP movie of
With
Batman '89.
Sure, yeah.
And then you consider that perhaps now the superhero movie trend is starting to diminish, and
Starting
the next
to wane.
and the next great IP mining will be video games. And
Yeah,
you've got
or
one of the,
toys and video games.
and you
yeah.
got kind of one of the bad ones, honestly.
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah,
Pretty good flick.
it's like that and the Dungeons and Dragons movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
and the Lego movie. There's a few good ones.
Barbie's good.
Barbie's good.
Barbie's solid.
Thank you so much. If you enjoy this content, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok and on our YouTube channel, which you're hopefully watching on now. Just Supporting Cast Pod usually is our handle. Yeah, we love doing this. Please let us know if there's anything we got completely wrong about Greek history, about ancient Greece, which I'm sure we did. But no, we had a lot of fun talking about this kind of stuff. And
We're going to
hope
get
you guys
visited by
too.
3 messengers from various gods telling us in our dreams that we've fucked up.
The fates hate me.
The fates, with their string.
One eye, and yet they're all looking bad at me. And remember that if you don't like, comment, and subscribe, your name will be written in the sand rather than in the ages.
Is that in the director's cut?
Yeah, it is. It's in the. I can remember one says it.
How
that's
did I guess? See you next week. Thank you.
Bye.